4:30. It's 4:30, yeah. You ready to go?
Yep.
Okay. It's 4:30, we'll call the meeting to order. For public information, a copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted on the east wall of the Commissioner Room. Roll call, please.
Meyer,
Here.
Harris,
Here.
Knapper,
Here.
Reisig,
Here.
Blue,
Here.
All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Any changes to the agenda?
I do have one. Under our Board of Equalization, we need to move the distress warrant resolution, remove it from the agenda. I'll put it on the first meeting in September. And that's all the changes I have.
Anybody else have a change? Call the roll. I guess I don't have I need a motion for approval, please. Is there a second?
Second it.
Any discussion? Call the roll.
I've got it open for your vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, you have 5 yeses.
Thank you. I want to remind everybody that the board does reserve the right to go into executive session anytime they feel it's necessary. Before we move into any of the business of the evening, I have an announcement I'd like to make. After a phone call on Friday from Mr. Knapper, said that he was representing the board, the rest of the board, and that this board has lost their confidence in me as a chairman. And he listed several reasons, some of which I'm not going to go into now. I may at a later date. But it was very disturbing, the information that he was giving me. A couple of things that I have tried to do as chairman, is number one is protect our employees, and secondly, to protect the 36,000 people that pay our wages. It's a pleasure to serve everybody, and I will continue to serve. I've got 4 more years. I'm not finished yet. I'm not going anywhere, maybe just move to another chair. But some of the issues that he brought up to me were very disturbing. My wife heard it. I was on speakerphone. She was appalled by the things that he was saying, and that's okay. I ended the conversation rather abruptly. No, basically I hung up on him is what I did. So we won't pull anything. And after thinking about it for about 2.5 minutes, I decided that I'm going to move on. And I at this time then would like to resign my position as chairman as of right now, and I'll turn it over to our worthy vice chairman, Mr. Harris, and he can continue the meeting.
Well, I would only say this evening that certainly this item not on the agenda. I suspect that Ken did give me a heads up that this would probably be happening this evening. So I knew of that a day or so ago. I only want to say that certainly we've appreciated what he's done here, and we'll talk about the whatever we need to talk about concerning that, I guess, at a later point. And in fact, I don't know whether officially we'll need to officially accept a resignation, and or then I think we also, for the next meeting, need to put on the agenda about reorganizing the chairperson, vice chair positions. But in my opinion, it wasn't on the agenda. I think we need to do it as of the next meeting. I told Ken that I would be willing to run the rest of the meeting tonight as appropriate.
Is there a lawyer in the house? I was joking.
Well, there
No,
is, but
no,
I'd say it'd be unfair.
as,
Cause I don't wanna sit here and say, no, there's no lawyer.
no, as I understand it, an elected position needs to resign to the board or to me. And beyond that, I don't know if it could be immediate as you're requesting right now.
My suggestion is, not having advance notice
Right.
of this, is that the procedure that Mars outlined, that he can resign as chair if he wants to, and then the vice chair would automatically take over, and you can put it on the agenda for your next meeting to reorganize.
That's,
Okay?
what I think we'll continue with in, at least for tonight. And then we'll go from there, so,
I did send a text to everybody, including Lisa and Kelly, on Friday. It says, please be advised that I will be resigning my position of chairman as of 8/19/24. It's been brought to my attention that you all have lost confidence in my ability to govern this board. Decide between yourselves who replacement should be. I will continue my role as commissioner. I felt that was enough of a notice.
so we'll, continue with, I'll run the meeting tonight, and then we'll just, simply put it on at least to reorganize at the next meeting. And when I say reorganize, I'm thinking that would be the chairperson and vice chair would be the way we would need to consider it. Okay, so we're gonna move on with the, next item. I think, the next item that we normally would, talk about is that the board reserves the right to enter into a closed session if deemed necessary. As far as I know, we don't have anything on, executive session for tonight, unless something would happen to come up during the meeting. The next item is the consent agenda, and these items are intended to be approved by one item or one motion, unless someone wants to consider something separately. And I would ask, does anyone wanna consider something separate? And if not, I'd entertain a motion to accept it.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as printed.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, we'll go ahead and vote electronically.
And you do have 5 yeses?
Alright, the motion's carried then. So we'll go to the next item, which is the building and zoning items. Bill?
So we need to do all these separate, Kelly?
I don't know that. I have them separated if we need to close each one separately, so.
Okay.
I'd feel better if we did it that way.
Just do each one separately?
Yeah,
Okay.
and let
Take
me,
a vote separately?
let me, officially say that this is a public hearing that was scheduled for at 4:30. And our first item is to discuss and consider approval for a request by Brandon and, McKaylee Wallace for a zoning change, and preliminary plat. And, Bill, we'll let you explain it, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. This is located in section 21, township 21, range 54. It's out, south and east of Gearing off of Highway 92, a couple miles. And, there's an existing ag estate there right now. It's essentially two pivot corners. It has a north and a south corner. And, he wants to separate that into 2 lots for, residential, basically single-family residence lots, a house on each lot. One lot's 8.7 acres, the other lot would be 10.3 acres. And, they have to change the zoning from ag to rural residential to do that. And the planning commission did recommend approval to the county board by a 6-0 vote.
Okay. Alright, so this is a public hearing. First of all, I would ask, is there anyone here this evening that would want to speak in opposition of this item? Seeing none, anyone that wants to speak in favor of this item? Must be Mr. Wallace, according to your shirt.
That's all I had. So, yeah, I'm Brandon Wallace. I reside at 160832 County Road 26. So all we're wanting to do is just, like we said, split the two properties in half. Original plan was to build a house on that one portion. And after looking at what the taxes are gonna be on that, we just don't think we're gonna be able to afford that. So we're just gonna sell that, and land's hard to come by nowadays, so we're wanting to keep just the north half to ourselves and sell off the south half.
Okay.
So,
All right,
about it.
appreciate your comments. Any questions for him while he's here? All right, thanks. Anyone else that wants to speak on this item? If not, we'll officially close the public hearing, and we'll go on to, voting for this. Bill, what do you need specifically?
Not yet.
Oh. Okay,
I just need a motion in a second.
Hang on,
okay, she wants us to wait just a second.
I have that after your public hearings. Is that okay?
Sure, I mean,
Right.
you wanna do them
And-
all at one time, we could go through every one of these and then just do one vote.
Not one vote, but one separately after all the public hearings is how I.
After all the public hearings are done. Is that what you, all right, we're gonna call this public hearing closed. And we can do all the votes at the end if we want to, if that's easier for you.
Please?
Okay. All right, I think we can do that. All right, we'll go on to the, second public hearing, which is another item for Bill, which is, discuss and consider approval for a request by Richard and Kathleen Gatch for an ag special use area. Bill?
So this one is located in section 26, township 21, range 54. And, what they're wanting to do is split off 16.25 acres. And it's separated from the rest of the farm by an irrigation ditch, so it can't be really on a pivot. So they wanna separate that off to sell that separately than the rest of the farm. So all we're doing here is, it's basically a plat that they're doing. They just need approval for that, to split that 16.25 off from the rest of the 80 acres. The planning commission did recommend approval by a 6-0 vote.
Okay. So again, this is a public hearing. I would ask if there's anyone here tonight to speak, against this item? Anyone here to speak for this item?
Hi, I'm Richard Gatch.
Yeah,
And as you noticed before, we had that little triangle and it's got a drain ditch up there. It's not conducive to have a center pivot there, but we'd like to keep it using it for alfalfa and corn, not residential or anything, so we wanna separate it off, make sure it's still used for ag.
okay. All right. Any questions for Mr. Gatch while he's up here? This has access to it,
Yep, right off County Road 27.
okay? I remember we looked at this when you were here for tax protest, but it's a lot smaller on this map, it's hard for me to see it. Okay, thanks. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of it? All right, if not, we'll close the public hearing, Bill, and, so I'm assuming that's all we need to do on that one until we vote at the end?
Yes.
Okay. Then we'll go on to the third item, which is a public hearing, to discuss an approval for a request from Sherry Beebe for a zoning change, commercial to rural residential, and, I'll let you explain that one,
So
Bill.
this is located in section 14, township 23, range 57. It's just east of Morrill. And, she used to have a commercial business there. It's no longer in operation, hasn't been for quite some time. And now her son wants to purchase that property, but in order to get the mortgage, he has to have that zoning changed over to residential.
Okay,
So it's a 6.8 acre lot. It meets all the requirements for the residential lots. So, it was, planning commission recommended 6-0 to approve that one.
What kind of business was it?
It was a dog grooming and sort of a kennel
Okay.
at one time.
Has that all been removed?
Yeah, there's,
It's all cleaned up and everything is good with it?
I mean, I didn't drive around back, but he
Okay.
said he didn't have any plans to
Just-
continue, in fact,
wanna
I don't
make
think
sure.
she had done that for quite some
Yeah.
time.
Okay. All right, so this is a public hearing. Is there anyone here that wants to speak, against this item? Let the record show there were none. Anyone here wanting to speak in favor of it? You said the planning commission approved it 6-0. All right. So we'll officially close the public hearing, and then we'll be again, voting on this item at the end with the other ones. So the next item, number 4, is another public hearing to discuss and consider approval for a request by Michelle, Marchand for a preliminary plat at the Lakeview subdivision. You wanna explain that one, Bill?
Yeah, so this is located in section 31, township 23, range 53. It's right by where you go into the dam down there. It's off that road that drives back into, they call it Jet Ski Beach. And it's right off that road, it's Main Road. And what she has an existing, it's approximately 9 acres, and she just wants to split that in two, it'd be a 2-parcel residential subdivision, which would be the Lakeview subdivision. And so we just had to rezone, it's already zoned recreational residential, we just need to actually do the replat to split it in two. So she does have access off the main road for both of those parcels. And the planning commission did recommend approval by a 6-0 vote on that one.
Okay. All right, any questions for Bill before he sits down? All right, let me officially open the public hearing then. And anyone here that wants to speak against this item? Let the record show there were none. Anyone that wants to speak in favor of it? I see Mrs. Marchant's here. Yeah, come on up.
Hello, I'm Michelle Marchand, and this is my property. I'm just trying to divide it almost in half. One is 5 acres and one is 3.5.
One of the questions that I had earlier was, I know a lot of that land out there is on leased land, or leased land from the government, but this is privately owned, is what I'm
I
understanding.
own the deed, yes.
So, seems appropriate then. Any questions from commissioners before? Okay, do you have anything else for us? Apparently no
Nope.
questions, okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna officially close the public hearing. Bill, is there anything else then that you wanna say on this item?
Nope, that she has permission to use that property that goes through there for the BLM property, so it's pretty cut and dry there. It's already zoned what it needs to be, so.
But does she have access writing from BLM to come in there?
Yeah, I do. I actually have an email.
That's good, that's good.
That was a big question, whether or not we had to come off a stone gate or not. And that was gonna be tricky, cause there is kind of there's a no passing zone, so.
Well, good.
All right. All right, we'll officially close the public hearing if I haven't already done that, and, we'll go to
I'm ready.
voting on each one. And we plan to vote on them separately then, Kelly?
Yes.
All right, so the first one was, the property for, Mr. Wallace. I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the, change for Mr. Wallace.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any other comments? Let's vote electronically.
Okay, you have 5 yeses.
All right, so the motion carried. Do we need to do anything else on this one? Did that took care of the, zoning and preliminary plat then?
Yes, yeah, you
Okay.
did them both with motion.
in one, okay. Then we'll go to the next one then, which is the, approval of request by Richard and Kathleen Gatz for the ag special use area.
I move that we approve the, ag special use for Gatches.
I'll second.
Any discussion? If not, let's vote.
Okay, 5 yeses?
Alright, so the motion carries. We'll go on to the next item, which is, to consider approval of request for Sherry Beebe for the zoning change, from commercial to rural residential. Entertain a motion.
I
I'll make
move,
a motion, Pete.
Motion to approve,
I'll make a motion to approve, yeah.
okay?
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second to approve, let's vote.
Okay, you have 5 yeses.
Alright, so the motion carries. We'll go to the next item, which is public hearing, for the approval. It's not, we've already done the public hearing, so the approval of request by, Mrs. Marchand, I think I heard, Marchand, for a preliminary, plat for the Lakeview subdivision.
I move that we approve the, change in plat for Michelle Marchand.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second, let's go ahead and vote.
Okay, 5 yeses.
Okay. Alright, so the motion carried. I believe that's all you need, Bill, for tonight on those?
So, no, I need, discuss and consider approval of chairman's signature on the final plat for the Wallace Rural subdivision. So now that you've approved the preliminary plat, you need to have that signature on the final plat for recording,
And that's on the Wallace,
Yep.
change.
right? On this one, then we'll also do another one for the Lakeview subdivision, but that's a separate item.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve the preliminary plat and authorize the chairman to sign the plat.
Correct. You
Okay.
basically have already approved the plat.
plat.
Right.
Now you're just approving the chairman's signature.
Signing it,
Yeah.
okay?
Well, I move that we approve the chairman's signature on the Wallace Rural subdivision.
I'll second.
Alright, any discussion? Let's go ahead and vote.
Okay, you have 5 yeses.
Alright, motion carries. So that one's done, and then we need to go down to the one on the Lakeview subdivision.
Yeah, I just need the
It's
same exact thing, yeah, just for the
Okay.
final plat on the Lakeview subdivision.
Alright, so do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to consider approval of chairman's signature for final plat of Lakeview subdivision.
Alright,
I'll second.
we have a motion and a second, any discussion? Let's go ahead and vote.
Five yeses.
Alright, so the motion carries. So I believe that takes care of all of those items, as far as you're
Yes,
concerned
that's
for
all the
right now?
zoning requests, correct?
Okay, so you just will stay up here, cause it looks like the next item,
Yep, I'm gonna let Phil go ahead and start off on
yeah,
that.
that's fine. So the next item is an update on amendments to the Scotts Bluff County zoning regulations for renewable energy. We've been talking about that quite a bit over the last 6 months, 8 months. And Phil Kelly is here, and Bill, to give us an update on how that's going. Phil?
Well, except for being out of town for a couple of weeks on vacation and having to stay in my house for a week last week, Bill and I have been researching and assembling some samples, regulations, and it's my recommendation that you consider both solar and wind in the zoning regulations, so we take care of both of those possibilities at the same time. We are developing guidelines for capacity for the solar, so that if you're just gonna put some solar panels on your roof, you'll have pretty limited requirements, but if it's an industrial size, there'll be significant requirements, both in way of application and addressing issues concerning the environment and fire protection and those issues that you've had, requiring, game and parks to have reports and FAA if necessary and things like that. So those are all gonna be in the regulations that we're going to have for you. Our plan is to, it's being typed on as we speak. Plan is that Bill and I will get together early next week to review it, with the goal, isn't there a goal that be at the planning commission?
September 10, September 10 planning commission.
When Bill and I have finished a draft that we're happy with to submit, we're gonna obviously have a planning commission, but submit it to, the commissioners so that you can take a look before that process gets going and have some comments for us, so that we'd have them ready before the, planning commission meeting. And so we won't have to go at it a couple of times when it gets to your level, so we have your comments about it. But, I'm pretty pleased with what our research has shown. A lot of other counties in Nebraska have been doing. It's gonna be a little thicker than what some of the counties have been doing, but, very thorough. And it will be designed to protect the county, protect property owners, protect adjacent property owners, the environment and fire protection, and address all those issues.
Okay.
We'll have an appropriate fee to compensate the county for its expenses. And, Bill and I are having a discussion today about whether the county would have an independent engineer evaluate the application. And we haven't formed a conclusion about that, but we're working on it. So, we talked about, capacity. What if there's, about, we want to, was that it?
Yeah, I think we're doing the timeline, right?
Yeah.
What we're looking at right now, so September for the planning commission.
So you hope to present it to them September 10th?
It's the next available meeting for the planning commission, yeah.
Okay,
So, we're finally making good progress. Been
Okay.
some halts and starts, but we're, making good progress now, so.
I have a question for either Bill or you, Phil, doesn't matter. If by some miracle the Prestons decide to reapply for their permit, the one that I'm assuming that was denied, do they need to do they fall under the new guidelines with that permit?
It's my understanding you rejected that application, so they can file a new application and they'll have to comply with the new guidelines.
Okay.
Cause your moratorium's still in effect. And Bill did some great research on that. There are 2 or 3 other counties that put moratoriums in place for renewable energy also in the last year, so. It sounds like everybody's trying to catch up with these issues. Okay?
We just need to turn the key.
yeah, Bill will take care of it maybe.
I don't know if there's a lawyer in the building.
I saw you here, that's why I thought I'd make a joke.
A joke? You know what they say? You can tease me and make jokes about me, but if you need me, I'll charge you double. Anything else I can, address?
So when's the appropriate time for commissioners to weigh in, make suggestions?
I think that, Russ has asked to get a copy before the planning commission.
Okay.
And I think that we'll pass it out so that you can make comments back to independently to us.
Okay.
Not as
Comments.
a group, but independently,
Yeah.
your comments, yeah.
And
Otherwise
those-
you'd be considered as part of the board. We got more than 3 people.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll send it to you individually, making comments back to Bill and I. And we'll, work with those to see how it should be addressed. And then revise it before it goes to the planning commission. And then planning commission may have suggestions or comments or changes or improvements they want. And then you'll have another shot at it when it comes up for final approval after a public hearing at the commissioners.
Weren't we not advised not to do that, Bill? As far,
Nice not to discuss it as part of the board.
okay, or even interfering as board members with the planning commission's process until it comes to us. Was that not correct?
It was this, not to discuss it at maybe a meeting showing up as part of a board
Okay.
meeting for the planning commission or something until you guys are actually convened as a board. I think independently, you can take suggestions just the same as you would from any other member.
Okay, it was my understanding that we weren't really, or we shouldn't be doing that. That came from the guy you hired, whatever his name was.
John Shepard, he just said that you, should be discussing it at a meeting before we go to the planning commission.
Okay,
That's what he was saying.
okay.
As a board.
Okay,
But
that's fine.
looking at it independently and discussing with either one of you shouldn't affect it.
Yeah, and, you know, we'll take a look at that to make sure we're giving you good advice about what you should and shouldn't do. Okay? We'll make sure that we're complying with the rules and regulations.
So the next thing we would see is that once you have a draft of that you would be getting us a copy individually. And then we should respond to you individually if we have comments. Right.
And then our job is to get that all put together in a final draft for the planning commission.
Right, and they'll make their recommendation to the board of commissioners.
Right. So we would get that at least a week early or something of the planning commission.
You should have it in the first week of September.
Okay, good.
My goal. And we'll make sure that that's a proper process and that we're not going out of bounds here. We'll make
Well,
sure
I'm
that
sure that's right.
if we do that step, that it's gonna be appropriate.
Okay. So, yeah, if you need to send any instructions with that to us at that same time, that's fine too.
It'll be, say, any comments, you send it to Bill or Phil,
Okay.
or Phil
And
or
not
Bill.
me. Okay.
In the research of these other counties' regulations, did any other counties have standalone regulations for battery storage systems?
There
How
was-
how did those counties address battery storage?
I can't tell you right now if I specifically saw that reference. We talked about battery storage having spacing.
And I think that's all part of the NFPA, that's the fire protection.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically what would happen is when the state fire marshal's office would issue your permit for that, those NFPA setbacks would be in there.
One of the other things I think is important to note, because, Mr. Preston asked about that, and that's that the fact that that we created another moratorium, is okay, and that, you're saying other counties have done the same
Yeah.
thing
Bill
in
found
Nebraska.
two or three other
And
counties,
Lincoln County did it.
Lancaster did it,
Yeah.
and two or three other counties that have had put moratoriums in place for up to a year.
So they could get
Up to speed
prepared,
with the
yeah.
industry, yeah.
Okay.
We decided not to put in nuclear at this time, so.
Yeah.
It's renewable.
We'll just accept
Right.
that right now, and then we can address that
Right.
down the road.
Well, and it
Well,
is
it's coming.
interesting that you mentioned it, because
Yeah.
wasn't it Hay Springs or something that we just read
Right.
recently that's might be a site for a small
Yeah,
nuclear?
those are little modular reactors, so they're
Right.
not like what you think of normally, they're a lot smaller now.
Yeah. Okay,
I think I saw a large nuclear power plant went online on the East Coast in the last month or two.
yeah. So,
So just to maybe encourage you guys to look a little deeper into our authority to do a moratorium, because I had used the reference of other counties are doing moratoriums, and Reginald Preston asked for a more specific explanation.
Do
Or-
we have was there a letter? We never, was there a letter sent by Mr. Long to the county about that?
I haven't seen it.
Well, I've got a call into it, so.
Okay.
I'll sort that out.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I think you're up to date with what our progress is. So we're moving fast now,
sure.
okay?
All right, well, I appreciate that, and I will just say that this item was certainly on the agenda. The, generally speaking, I would be asking for any comment from the audience, and I don't mind if we do that. I don't intend for this to be a 2-hour discussion or even more than a 20-minute discussion, but if someone wants to comment, I particularly see the landowners here, and they may want to have a comment, but this isn't intended to be a 1-hour question and answer period. But if you'd like to comment, you're welcome to. Or anyone else, as far as that goes.
Evening, everybody.
Hello.
And you might just say who you are, just for everyone else.
Benefit of everybody else in the room, my name is Reginald Preston. I live at 3719 Five Oaks Drive in Scotts Bluff. Just on the update from Mr. Kelly there, thanks for providing where they're at in the process. Regarding the moratorium, to Mr. Knapper's point, yes, USA Today article citing use of moratoriums, and because other counties do it, simply doesn't provide you any legal top cover to do what you're doing. Even you, Mr. Harris, pointed out you couldn't answer at the last meeting why you have a moratorium or why you can have a moratorium. So any further assistance in explaining why this county, by extension any other, but certainly this one can have this moratorium would be certainly helpful.
And I would only say that I believe that Mr. Kelly and Mr. Long are gonna be talking about that, I think, when they speak.
Right, and likely, Mr. Long was here asking for a letter that's required by state statute. That's probably the topic he's seeking. I'm not gonna speak for him, but I'm sure you'll be in touch and work through that. And to finish that thought on the moratorium, as far as having some time to get things up to speed, you can certainly note how long it's taken us to get to here. I think without the moratorium, it is a slow enough moving process. There's no reason to tap the brakes because the car is going so slowly. If it was going to stop, it would have to speed up first. So you have plenty of room to do what you're doing without the moratorium. I don't think it provides you any top cover. I don't think you have the authority to do it. I think you have all the authority and time you need based on the process you have in the county.
Appreciate your comment. I would only say that I had already thought about if we get all of our ducks in a row, so to speak, that I would not see why that we couldn't ask at some point to lift that moratorium if we think we're ready. And Phil's shaking his head, that would probably be okay. So I don't think we have to wait till the very end of it if we feel we're ready.
Great.
So,
Thanks.
okay, thanks. Any other comments? All right, seeing none, we'll close out on that item and we'll go to the next one.
Motion for Board of Equalization.
Yeah, so the next items are the Board of Equalization items, so we need a motion to go into Board of Equalization.
I move that we go into the Board of Equalization.
I'll second.
So, if we can vote. Russ, you might have to do it again.
Okay, you have 5 yeses.
All right, motion's carried, so we're in the Board of Equalization. The first item, discuss and consider renewal of contract with Pritchard and Abbott Incorporated for professional appraisal services. Robert?
Good evening. Scotts Bluff County has used Pritchard and Abbott for a number of years. They're a specialty appraisal firm that specifically values oil and gas rights. So we have a 2-year renewal contract. It's a very small contract. Basically, the contract per year is going from $2,220 per year to $2,400. Since I didn't have any guidance on amount that I could sign without approval, I thought it appropriate for me to present it and get the board's approval. We don't necessarily need the approval tonight. It's really for your review and consideration.
So you would be bringing it back to us for approval later.
Unless you want to approve it tonight.
Any questions, I guess, from commissioners? This is certainly an area where we wouldn't have the expertise to do this.
Correct, yes. Valuing the royalty and the working. Yeah.
This is for commercial?
No, this is for oil and gas,
Oh,
so
yeah,
minerals.
sorry.
Yeah.
Is that available to any landowner at the time of their sale or their purchase of a piece of property?
Yeah, so
Or do they have to hire
currently-
somebody separately to do that?
Currently, is the county pays for this, and this is common in pretty much all counties because it is a very unique and special, requirement to value the working interest and the royalty interests on minerals. And so these guys are a nationally recognized firm. Actually, all the assessors that I'm aware of in the state of Nebraska use Pritchard and Abbott. They're based out of Fort Worth, Texas.
And, yeah, so these would be leases that are already in place, and they're establishing a value on them for you.
That's right. And currently, I think we have less than a dozen of those in the county.
So how often do they reappraise these?
Once per year, and they have to provide the information to my office by March 15th, so we can include that in setting the values by March 19th.
So for $2,400, they're gonna appraise 10 or 12 different mineral leases.
That's correct. And they'll assess and assign a value to the working interest as well as to the royalty interest.
Okay,
So for $240, we're getting an appraisal done.
Roughly.
I'll move to approve the contract, for the Pritchard and Abbott Professional Appraisal Services.
I'll second it.
any other discussion?
Yeah, I have one other question. What is our average income off of those wells normally? Or
It
those
varies.
leases?
Yeah, it varies, the valuations. I have them available in my office. I didn't bring them
I
up here
mean,
with me.
you have a
But
rough
it's, tens of thousands of dollars to,
That's their income, their income.
oh, their income? I have no
I
idea.
mean, our income isn't 10,000, right?
No. As far as, what they do is help us set values, so we set the values that would ultimately turn into taxable, valuations. But they vary. I mean, we have some very small ones and, a couple that are larger.
Their value's gonna be based upon the production of that oil well or gas well or whatever.
That's correct.
And then we're gonna get our normal levied percentage off of that value, I'm assuming?
Correct. I enter the values once it's received in March from Pritchard and Abbott, and it would go into the assessed value for the county.
Right, and
In
so
my
our,
question,
go ahead.
in my question, I was hoping that our income was higher than $240 a well.
Yeah.
Might not be on some of them.
Questionable, yeah.
But it may
Don't know
be,
the answer to
may
that
be a lot
right
more
now.
than that on others. Okay,
And I do have two originals if the board does approve it, one our copy and one for Pritchard and Abbott. And the way they wrote the contract, it would require, the board signature, county clerk, and the county assessor.
okay. So we have a motion and a second. We've had discussion from, the commissioners. Any other discussion on this item? All right. Seeing none, I think we're ready to vote. Go ahead.
Okay, you have 5 yeses.
All right, so the motion's carried, so I guess we got it done tonight. Okay,
How do we value leases on land leased for renewable energy? Who values those leases?
Well-
Currently, it's my understanding that they're assessed, if there's renewable energy like solar or wind, the property is
gets done through the state, and it's so much,
Yep, that's the main
kilowatt or something.
Yep.
Capacity tax, yeah. Right. Alright, so that's our last item, I think, in the Board of Equalization, so,
Did we do the distress warrant?
that's the one she removed from the agenda. So, we need a motion to, go out of the Board of Equalization.
I move that we go out of Board of Equalization.
I'll second.
Alright, so we'll go to the back side of the agenda.
Can you vote?
Oh,
Real quick
sorry,
for me?
I'm sorry.
Okay, you have 5 yeses?
Alright, motion's carried. We'll go on to the next, page, which is general agenda items. The first one is discuss and consider approval of appointing Raymond Schultz to the Scotts Bluff County Veteran Service Committee. Matt's not here, is he?
No.
We do have a letter in our packet, concerning, Mr. Schultz. And,
And
Is
the
it-
nomination from
right, he's,
the Legion.
yeah, he's been recommended from the, Veteran Service Committee. And, wants us to consider him for appointment on the Scotts Bluff County Veteran Service Committee.
He was on that one other time, wasn't he? When we
I haven't
appointed
s-
Matt, he was on.
I think maybe he's,
I don't
Yeah.
know him personally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That name is
he's
familiar.
been on that board.
right, and I think I do know him.
Yeah, he's,
Didn't he marry a Uber girl from Barry?
I can vouch for him. I went to high school with him.
Alright.
He's a good man,
Good.
and
He is a good man.
he did sit on the committee when we hired Matt, went through all the interviews.
Okay, so that's,
He's very,
What
very
he's,
dedicated.
yeah.
He'd make a continued member.
Matt recommends him too in his letter, so.
in his stuff, so.
well, I move we approve the appointment of Raymond Schultz to the Veterans Committee.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second. I wanna be sure if anyone's here on this item that they have a chance to speak. I don't see anyone, so let's go ahead and vote then.
Five yeses.
Motion's carried. Okay, we'll go to the next item. Alright, the next item is discuss and consider combining departments as necessary. So, Commissioner Reisig, you had this put on the agenda.
I did, I wanted to discuss,
And be sure, Russ, that we're talking into our microphones.
All right, I wanted to
All of
dis-
us, as far as that goes.
okay, I wanted to discuss, possibly considering bringing the, mapping department in with the assessor's office. I think it's generally throughout the state, it's a good fit. There's 4 counties in Nebraska that aren't set up that way, and we're one of them. I think we have, this year with the budget constraints, restraints, or whatever you wanna call it, we're short of cash, and we're gonna have to either merge some things or riff some people. We're short $3 million. It isn't something we just wanna do 'cause it's fun. I don't like it at all. But I don't know what else we're gonna do here. We've gotta pull some things together. And that's exactly how I'd do it if it was my business, my company, is I would tighten my belt and we would, get rid of our luxuries. We'd pull it up and keep the benefit of it, but we would pull it together with something that could make it work. And that's where we're at right now, I guess. So, looks like we have people who'd like to speak on it, and that's my opinion on it.
Well, I just wanna make sure that if we do this, we are not going to sacrifice any services that are currently provided to other county departments, other municipalities within the county or adjacent that we serve, other political subdivisions, whether it be fire districts or school boards or anybody we mapped for. And probably most important, I think we need to, you know, if the assessor's going to oversee this, we have to have the assessor's word that this mapping department is going to be available to respond at 2 AM, 5 AM, 11 PM to any emergencies, that arise, and that, you know, overtime won't be overtime in the situation of an emergency will not be, a constraint that would keep us from allowing them to respond to a call. Those are my largest concerns. I'm sure we'll hear more concerns, and we'll need to address those as they come up, so.
I'd like to ask, whose idea was this?
Mine,
All yours?
all
Russ?
mine.
I see. And how do you plan on saving any money by doing this?
Well, the assessor's office is looking to hire 2 people for staff. If we can overlap that and cross-train and utilize the people we have right now, I think that'll save us nearly $100,000. Then if we can, you know, work with the same thing, same process with, computer software, different things, I think we can do the same thing there.
So was this discussed with the assessor's office?
Yes, it was.
So would the employees that are in the mapping department now, you're looking at using, was there 3 in there, all 3 of them?
Yeah, we're not firing anyone.
Are they gonna remain at the same salary?
They will for a while until they're readjusted to what they're doing.
So in other words, there could be a reduction in salary with this?
Could be.
I see.
We could do that, or we can do it the hard way. We can take it and farm it out. We can have it brought in, what's the software company, Charlie, that has that? Beacon.
Beacon, so you know, when some of these discussions started, I reached out to Beacon, Schneider, it's the mapping software that we use, for a lot of what the mapping department does. There's other pieces of software, but, just working through it, through the phone call with our county's representative there. You know, she was comparing us to another county that is similar in size in the state of Kansas, which is a 22,000 parcel county. She listed off, 7 or 8 different services that they provide for that county, and she told me that we could outsource those services to their company for $60,000.
Huh? Sorry, sorry.
So,
I know it's not what we wanna do.
let me mention,
Can I talk?
let me mention here that, I know that there may be several people that wanna, talk about this item tonight, and we plan to allow each person some time to do that. I just, wanna keep it civil, number 1, and number 2, we have to have at least, you can try and, have your own time constraints to the extent that, I'm hoping that we can get through this in a reasonable amount of time, whatever that is, so, but go ahead.
Okay. I'm
And
Dennis
say who
Sullivan.
you are, so everybody knows.
I'm Dennis Sullivan, the county surveyor, and this here is very unique to me. Simply because I was in Ashley Tim's Randa's position. I was the GIS mapper for Lincoln County for 7 years. And then they went private. They didn't do half of what I do. You get a plat like Scott or I do, it's gonna take them, I don't know how long, to get it put on your map and to get it right. My brother was he was kinda,
Ex officio, he was all of it.
yeah, he was deeds clerk, whatever. And he had one parcel come in and it took him, I don't know, 4 or 5 months. It wasn't Beacon, but it was GIS. So,
We got a little ghost in there, don't we?
oh, I'm pounding on it. Anyway, for what actually Tim Amanda's been doing, take specialized training,
Absolutely.
or GIS. What the assessor does, it's totally different in my book.
It is.
So to cross train them, I don't think that's gonna work to cross train.
Okay.
And plus, what's gonna happen to the surveyor's records? He's gonna digitize those, put them online, so
We'll,
Scott and I can look at them, and the other 2 surveyors around here, I'm sure there's other surveyors back east that look at them too. So, I would hate to see you guys do that personally. It's my opinion.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks. Others? Tim?
Tim White, I'm a GIS Tech 2 in the mapping department. I have 2 issues here. First of all, you're talking about adding another full-time position to what we already do and then reducing our salary. That doesn't make sense at all. We do have specialized training. I've been doing GIS for, well, 20 years. That's 20 years of experience. You know, you wanna pay for that, you wanna keep that, then we need to make sure we have that happen. I'm just talking for me, I'm talking for every department, every employee. That's number 1. Number 2, you're talking to Schneider. Schneider, that sales rep has never stepped foot in our office, does not know what we do. Our former sales rep was to us once or twice a year, knew everything that we did, okay? And I do believe that she quoted you that they can do NG 911 for us, is that right?
I can't remember all the different services she lists.
Okay, because if she quotes that she can do NG 911, she cannot do NG 911 like us. She can give addresses, she cannot do NG 911 because she is not, they are not certified by the Public Safety Commission of Nebraska. We are. Our county department is the only county department in this state that is certified to do NG 911. Everyone else has to farm that out to a third-party vendor, Geocom, whoever else. Okay. The other thing about farming it out is that if you do that, you've now just set 35 years of data and handed it on a silver platter to a third-party vendor that will sell it to make profit. In most of those contracts, when you do that, that data is no longer the county's. That contract goes south and you decide to bring a GIS department back in here, you start off from scratch, 0. That's 35 years to make back up. How much is that gonna cost you if you want us to look at money side of things? It's gonna cost you millions and millions of dollars, probably 5, 10, 15 years, even with newer data to get
Well,
that
I think
done.
we said we're not going that direction, Tim.
Well, but it's possible to go that
No,
direction,
it's
because
not
if you have Robert's good with it. You get another assessor that's not good with it, you don't have control of it. You're out, we're done. So, those are my 2 main things I wanted to say, but, I really think that if you're gonna get a quote from another company, you know exactly what we need to do, so you need to know exactly what you need to ask. And I know you guys got a letter with, you know, 2 or 3 sheets of what we do in our office. That's a list of what we do. And it looks very simple, but a lot of that stuff has a lot of moving targets, lots of things to get it done. And you have to have the knowledge and ability to do it, so. But,
I'm glad you mentioned that because Ashley had prepared a letter that we all got a copy of, and it was extensive as far as all the things that are done. And, at least what I have heard from these folks that have been talking about it is that it would not be the intent to, not to lose any of those functions, so to speak, or services. And I realize that that's a target in motion if we start talking change. And I know that's always concerning, but at least from what I've heard, it would not be the intent to offer less as far as services go. So I've just mentioned that to you, but I appreciate you bringing up that letter, because it was extensive, and I didn't bring mine with me tonight, but, it was
It's long.
a good letter and a good list of things that's done, so.
The last thing I can say, because you said that, is if you add more to what our job titles already have and our job functions already have, you're gonna have to lose something somewhere. You can't just keep piling on. And we only have 8 hours a day, so
All right,
it's just a thought.
appreciate your thoughts.
Thank you.
All right,
Good evening. I'm Jenny Mattern, and I'm here on behalf of the city of Terrytown. I have great concern with these two departments being merged together. A wise gal once told me that if I hire you for a position, I am paying you for those things that I require you to do when I hire you. If I'm adding additional workload, that should be additional pay. If you come in and don't do your job, then I shouldn't pay you for that either. Correct me if I'm wrong. However, what I can tell you that any time that I have needed any information regarding anything to do with the mapping department, I have gotten immediate responses. I've gotten I've gotten help when I didn't deserve to have help, because we don't pay directly to the GIS mapping department for the county. What I can tell you, I've also reached out to the assessor's office and have not gotten those same responses that are needed on a quick basis, right? I understand their workload is a lot as well, and they could use the assistance. However, I do feel as though you should leave the specialized department in the specialized department. Okay?
appreciate it,
Yes.
thanks. Others?
Scott Bossé, 3060 Wood County Road 17, Mitchell, Nebraska.
Thank you.
Like everybody else, the mapping department does a great job, and I don't think anybody's throwing a rock at that. But when you say your intention, you know, we intend for this and intend for that, I don't see how that's gonna follow through. Why are there openings you can't fill in the assessor's office? You said you got a couple openings right now.
Yeah, so we have 3 people in mapping, and we're gonna hire 2 more, that makes 5.
Right, in the assessor's office though, I mean, they've always been staffed independently and whatnot.
Right.
Why are there current openings there now?
We have a new assessor, and he's building the assessor's office.
Oh, so it's growing?
It's growing.
You haven't had turnover or anything?
I think we've had lots of turnover.
Oh, yeah.
Back
Right.
a year ago. But I think he's just now, asking to be, allowed 2 more employees. I think he's filled up on the current number of employees that he's had, but he's asking for 2 additional.
Right, it sounds like the mapping department has helped extensively with the assessor's office. Amanda's been working with them a lot and whatnot. I guess my problem is there's a lot of shakeup here lately, you know. And I think the assessor's office needs to settle down and get established and get their feet in the ground before we just chuck a working thing into that area. You know, and it just, to me, this seemed really quick. And they do a lot that people don't think about. And I hate to see any of that lost. And I know it's not the intent or anything else, but it will. And I guess that's it.
All right, thanks. Others? Tyler?
I'm Tyler Exis, I'm the 911 coordinator. Just to kind of reiterate on what Tim had said about the NG 911 stuff, he's totally right on that. With the way the department is set up now, I can get quick responses from Ashley and Tim, and things need to be quick. If there's something wrong with the MSAG, that's the Master Street Address Guide, or any particular address that isn't correct and it needs to be uploaded into our next gen 911 mapping, it better be right. Because if you farm it out to some place and I tell them something's wrong and it takes a month for them to upload it, which is what happens a lot when you outsource stuff like that, and then somebody's dying there and they need help, and the address is wrong, gets plotted wrong on the map because the data's wrong, and somebody dies, then you got a problem. So I don't think that this is something that should be messed with. That's just my opinion.
Okay, thanks. Others?
I would just like to know if you guys have any questions for me.
Ashley, how much work do you do with the assessor's office now?
I'd say it's about 25% of our overall work. Sometimes it's more because of protests or, you know, sales, you know, we have lots of sales that month or whatever. But, I'd say roughly 25%.
So Ashley, I wanted to confirm, so, what I'm understanding, see, I was under the impression, and it was just my own fault, that, mapping used to be part of the assessor's office. But it actually wasn't part of the assessor's office, it was part of the surveyor's office.
Right, yes, my grandpa held, the surveyor position and the GIS administrator position.
Right, and then, it was located, his office was located right there by the assessor's
Correct.
office.
Yep.
But it was part of the surveyor's office.
Yes.
I wanted to clarify that because I may have said that to some other people, and I wanted to be sure that I correct that, here. So it was part of the surveyors, and then it was split off into its own, separate, entity, so to speak. And I don't know when that happened or what the intent was at the time. Maybe Ken can remember, but I don't know. But then you've been out on your own, so to speak, in your own entity for approximately, I'm guessing 15, 20 years?
I would say, yeah.
Do you know, Susie?
It's actually 35.
35?
Yeah.
Okay, time goes by.
We started it in 1989.
Okay. All right, so since '89, I guess. And so that may have been prior to you being on the board. But anyway, so they were made their own entity at that time. And then ultimately, they ended up moving out to the,
Right,
with the roads
we
area.
kind of outgrew that space next door to the assessor, and so that was the next spot, I guess, available.
Was your granddad still with you when you moved out there?
Yes.
He was?
Mm-hmm.
And
Remember that.
one of the things that I have heard, and I think is important, that, that there's lots of records, lots of old records that are important to the county,
Yes.
needs to be sure and be maintained as county records and be dealt with from someone's standpoint, a mapping department standpoint, or whoever's in charge of mapping standpoint needs to be, you've kinda acted like the custodian of those records,
Right.
and that would still be important as well.
And there's, I mean, I think we have 4 or 5 filing cabinets, and, that's just files, that's just surveys. We have books as well.
Sure.
There's quite a bit.
So, I think that's all the questions I have for you specifically right now. I'm gonna have more comments later, but they're not specific for you.
Do you, was your granddad elected or was he appointed as a surveyor at the time?
He was elected as surveyor, but he was appointed as the GIS administrator.
But he was elected, but he was he was a county full-time employee.
Yes,
as-
he was.
As a surveyor.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but his main job was GIS.
Okay, so was he paid through GIS or through the surveyor?
I think yes, he split his time. Anytime he was out surveying, he documented that time.
Dennis said he had a familiar situation. How were you paid through your
I
previous?
was a full-time employee of the assessor's department, cause she needed the maps.
Could you come up? I can't hear you, please.
When I
You can
was-
stay right there, actually, you can just stay right there.
When I was working for Lincoln County, I was full-time employee of the assessors department.
Okay,
The reason she hired me was because I was also a licensed land surveyor.
okay.
Some of the legal descriptions Ashley gets into, you know,
So my question was, she hired you as GIS, not a surveyor.
right.
Now, were you elected as a surveyor then for that county, or how did you?
No, I wasn't. That's why she hired me.
Oh, okay.
They had an elected county surveyor that also had a private business,
I got you.
so she did county
But you were
surveying
full-time for the county GIS, you worked 8 hours a day for the county?
for 7 years,
Okay.
doing their mapping, and then they farmed it out to GIS Works. And that's why I'm here, bothering you guys.
Okay, appreciate it.
All right,
One
thank you.
other thing on the records that Ashley was talking about, those are old records. Scott and I were talking the other day, I was down in Box Butte County doing a survey, looking for records. They don't have any. So those records need to be maintained, housed with the county, so the surveyors like us have access to them.
Are those too big to be,
The county didn't wanna have space in the courthouse up there, so old Ron Vogel in the 70s took them to his house, his office, and then they were never seen again.
that was from Sioux County?
No,
Box Butte.
Box Butte, okay.
Yep.
Are these too large to be scanned and put on electronic files?
We are scanning them. So last year when I asked for that part-time person, that's what she was doing, was scanning them all as PDFs so we could put them online. But it still takes maintenance. We still have to keep up on it.
Yeah, and, you know, you got 4 surveyors around this country that do surveys through Scotts Bluff. They're turning in surveys to Ashley all the time,
Mm-hmm.
so you have that upkeep to keep going.
Alright, appreciate it.
I have a
Any-
question.
Yeah,
First, I'm gonna start off, I am totally against farming out anything dealing with mapping GIS. That is not constructive. But, I will consider the merger if it will work. But the one question that nobody's answered is, why would your ability to do what you do now be affected by a merger? Nobody's given me a reason why if they merged, you couldn't do what you do now.
I would just say that it would just be the added work from like assessor work, I'd say. If that is the case, doing everything that the 3 of us do on top of extra work would eventually make it to where services are falling. You know, I mean, 'cause you can't do everything we're doing and then add onto it and still provide everything that we're doing. At somewhere, something is gonna lack. And it may not happen right away, but it would eventually happen.
But we haven't tried it yet, so we don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to look at things from
And
both angles.
it's not
because-
Robert
Cause
that,
I've been through that kind of thing before, where sometimes it didn't work, but the most of the time it did work. But
Right.
it depended on how people worked together and their attitudes.
right, and it's not Robert that, Robert and I would work together. But what happens when it's not Robert?
Well, we're gonna put something in place that we can.
But
research.
then it's under an elected official, and at that point, you don't tell them what to do.
No, we can prevent that going in.
there was a question of that, or that was mentioned to me at some point, and so certainly one of my concerns is, again, as most people know, that we have far more control with a appointed department head and having a separate entity versus an elected official's office. An elected official can do more of whatever they want to do without any, real guidance from the commissioners. Yeah, now most respectable elected officials at least listen most of the time and are reactive to some of the concerns that commissioners have, but I would say that if for any reason this happened, it would be absolutely, critical to, have the authority to change that back. And if, we would have to have that authority is all I would say.
I agree.
And if we didn't, then I would not be very excited about it. Because, one of the things that I've said about many changes in positions or whatever, and that's that most of you know that, not all that long ago, we took the weed department has been consolidated with, the roads department, and, it certainly was able to happen fairly easily because our current roads foreman had weed, certification, and it was easy to do. Generally speaking, what I always like to say is try and take the personalities out of this decision. And that, again, I agree that, today, Robert would probably be easy to work with.
Yeah.
And a good,
And we work good together now.
right, and so because of that, I understand it, but if we take the personalities out of it, because he won't be here forever, you won't be here forever, we won't be here forever, and then what is the best for the county in the long term is what, I think is important for us to consider. And, many times this stuff gets talked about, because of certain personalities. And I just wanna caution us on that's, not what should end up happening overall, because certainly there's been some situations not all that long ago that, you know, those departments didn't get along at all, and there was a, you know, real difficulty there. And I just wanna be sure that we're careful of, that, and then that we would have the authority to take back, the department if we felt we needed to do that, if indeed it happens, so,
I have a question for Robert. How much input have you had in this, Robert?
It was, it's been discussed with me that there was a conversation with Ashley about this. And, I haven't made any plans or done anything like that. The board hasn't, you know, just now reviewing and considering it, there's been no decisions made. I did talk with Ashley. Both of us agreed that we would certainly work together and make it successful if that's what the board decides to do. I think, you know, it's really not my decision, it's the board's decision. You know, and I'll help out any way I possibly can. And, I mean, I'll be glad to answer anything. And really, like I said, I haven't prepped anything because the board hasn't acted.
Robert, do you have like a time tracking system for your employees, where like a ticketing system? I know in my days in IT, we had to log our hours on each project we were working on, and it gave management a way to say, okay, we need more employees, we need less employees. We can take this guy and cross-train him on this project. Or does the assessor's office have anything like that now?
We do not. That sounds more like job costing type work.
Yep.
And we don't. We currently use Time Clock Plus.
Okay.
So all of my employees clock in and out, so, you know, we're able to track hours and accrued vacation, that type of thing.
So how do you track each worker's productivity?
I'm certainly in the assessor's office right now. I know what everybody's doing every day, where we all have a common goal. It depends on what part of the year it is. We're working on homesteads, personal properties, setting values, doing field reviews. So we have a staff meeting once a week on Tuesday mornings, and we talk about what we're currently working on, if we need any special assignments, and who's taking responsibility for certain things. So there are certain things that are assigned to people within the department, and everybody's busy, you know, every day.
Is there any way you can quantify the backlog of work that's currently sitting on desks and you know, to I guess maybe to justify the additional two positions?
I can say that when I joined the assessor's office as the office manager in October of last year, there were over 600 building permits that were aged, and I'm not saying 6 months, I'm talking a year, 2 years, 3 years old. And we were able to pick up about half of those between October and when we set values, and that was around $4 million. So I think very easily there's another $4 million out there in aged building permits that haven't been picked up. So that's taxable value that's not been added to the tax rolls.
And the reasoning that hasn't been picked up is not because the office is scrolling on their phone during their downtime or they have too much downtime, but rather because you don't have enough staff.
That's correct. We could do more, obviously, with more staff. We're not only working on current volume, we're working on things that have been postponed or not done. And I'm not saying any bad words about prior assessors or the assessor's office. It's just a reality that there were those backlogs. And we're also trying to modernize by making sure all of our records are electronic. On a go-forward basis, they are, but we're also trying to get all of our documents imaged so they're available online.
So if mapping, if the 3 FTEs that are assigned to mapping are moved into the assessor's office and they need to keep up with their current workload, how does adding them to your department help you catch up with those if their workload is already topped out?
Yeah, I'm certainly not a mapping expert. I've never worked in mapping. I have managed a lot of processes and people, thousands of people over years. When you do a combination, typically there's some synergies, some economies of scale. Each, I don't care what department you're in, there are busier times than others, and you're able to have fungible resources that can move back and forth. And you know, I think Amanda is a really good example of that, in the fact that she's very well versed on mapping as well as the assessor's office.
And she's already been helping some that way, is that true?
Right, whenever the prior assessor, before she retired, I guess after she retired, Amanda, Kina, as well as Jean Bauer all helped in that department. And Kina, I think we have Kina in the budget to help through September, as well as Amanda for this future fiscal year.
What would be the advantage of moving that department to your department?
I think
If they're gonna do the exact same work that they're doing right now upstairs, what's the advantage of them moving to your department?
I don't think I have to defend that. That's a board's idea and decision.
I'm asking you.
I think I've already said that there's fungible resources, there's economies of scale anytime you combine two small groups of people.
And that couldn't be done in separate offices?
Location-wise?
You're one floor apart. It's not like it's.
Well, I'm not advocating to moving them or not moving them.
But do you see an advantage of them being in your office?
There could be, just by physical location, communication. Yeah. Supervision.
It should be noted that certainly there's lots of coordination between Jean's office, assessor's office, mapping office. A lot of the things that happen has to be coordinated amongst the three. My understanding, and I learned this 3 or 4 years ago, but kind of the process of how when a property gets taken to Jean's office first, I think, the information's recorded, And then that information sometimes requires some redrawing, sometimes not. But that, what do you call it, route slips or something that you use that
Right.
sends it from her office to assessor next, I think, and then mapping, and then maybe back, and so it
Correct.
follows a process. And, but those three offices are closely linked to what they do. And, they have to share information and work closely together to be effective.
We do.
And so,
And I think that all the departments that you just mentioned, Mr. Harris, work together very well.
yeah, I think,
And as like I mentioned, and knowing that this, was on the agenda for tonight, Ashley and I have spoken, and, I think we both agree that our offices work very well together, and that we would do everything we can to make a combination successful. And if part of that is, being able to reduce some, proposed budgeted increases in my staff, that would be great.
So if this were to happen, those three individuals would be under your control, is that right? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's, I believe, what's been proposed, yeah.
I see. Okay.
thanks.
Yep.
I would ask any other, okay, Tim, come on up, and then anyone else that wants to comment.
You go, it's probably your question.
Go ahead.
For those who don't know, I'm sure everybody knows me, I'm Amanda Strong, I work in the GIS department. I feel like my perspective is a little bit unique, in that I was in the, assessor's office for 13 years. So I can speak to kind of both sides of the coin here. There were just a couple things that were mentioned that I would like to kind of address. First off, I can say I have no qualms with working under Robert. He and I worked together for quite a while now, and we work very well together. One of the things that I kind of zeroed in on was the cross-training aspect of things. I do worry about that for the future. I'm grandfathered in. I know all of the assessment side of things. Now I've learned all of the mapping side of things. Bringing those together for me personally, not really an issue. However, thinking long term, if you're planning on bringing other employees into the department and asking them to learn both sides, that's gonna be very difficult in the future. You're looking at asking somebody to learn Esri mapping products, learning how to read a legal description, a survey, and then also asking the same individual to go out and data collect a property, understand building, code. Coming into the office and doing a homestead exemption and understanding trusts and IRS rules. If we're looking cost savings in the future, just that specifically, not sure how that's gonna work if you don't have individual roles within the office. If we're talking as far as the assessor's office being the umbrella and mapping working underneath it, I can see that working far better. Cross-training in the office, I can just kind of attest to Robert's office and saying that they do have a big hill to climb. I've been working down there, what, a year now? Since I've been upstairs. And Robert is correct, and they're looking at probably a good 3 years of backlog miscellaneous items, not even permits. There's busy work that needs to be done, things like that. So as far as having other bodies in the office, yes, absolutely. He needs it. My concern with just how the conversation is going currently is the cross-training side of it. Being able to get it all done and cross-training and maintain our own individual jobs without losing services is something that really needs to be discussed and considered closely and in detail before making a final decision on how everything's going to lay out. So that's my only input
Appreciate
for now.
Yeah, you have a unique situation
Yeah,
where you've worked both. So.
Yeah, I've seen both sides, and so that would be my my caution moving forward as far as how things are decided.
Okay, appreciate it.
Amanda, I have a question for you. With the cross-training, Ezra and Northview, and I don't know what the assessor uses, are those programs any similarities at all?
No, as far as this program that's used in-house in the assessor and the Esri products, there may be ways for them to talk to each other, but as far as being used overlapping, no.
That's what
Just gave you too much time to talk. Have to think, I mean,
Do they
so I
get
can
2
talk.
times on the mic?
Wow, you get a little bit more.
Okay.
I got one more. So, this decision seems to be rash and it all is about budget, but nobody sat down and actually put together a plan, a business plan of what titles will be, what it'll actually save. If it won't save anything, I don't see why anything should change. Our offices do work well together. We have a system. You know, we can quality control each other because of the way that we've done things for many years. So my question is just, or suggestion is that before any of this is decided, you're calling it a budget issue. I really think that you need to look at putting together a business plan of sorts that shows where everybody's gonna be and responsibilities and what you have decided before you make a final decision, cause making a rash decision could possibly make something worse than better. So, that's all.
Okay,
Thank you.
appreciate it. Any others? Susie, come on up. And then hopefully, we'll be winding this down, it looks like, pretty quick.
Susie Wick, and I'm the prior GIS administrator, and now in Hot Springs retired. I would like to mention that you are going to lose services. As much as you say that everybody can get all these jobs done, you've got state statute on the assessor's office and deadlines. How does that affect the deadlines that are in GIS? Both offices, well, the GIS has an ebb and flow, and there's always a change with Next Gen 911, all the new things that Tyler can tell you that is changing just with their comm center, and we're carrying that service, and that server is under our GIS office. A lot of these different programs have been approved by the state for our office to do this. We are one of the unique offices, as we don't have to outsource this and can do this quickly in-house. If you are combining services and you're giving new job titles, what are the wages gonna be if you're doing a dual job? Is that gonna change and higher those wages? So I'm very, very concerned about the services. I know how much time, and I've never in my 10, 12 years have seen a commissioner come in frequently to see what our office does. It's, I think this is a little bit rash and done quickly without being planned. So I just like to put that in.
Thanks. Any others?
I would like to ask Ashley a couple of the same questions I asked Robert. Do you guys have a ticketing system that tracks time spent on projects or anything like that?
No, we, when we get big projects, like Amanda and I, recently, we split the county in half, the two of us, and we moved all of the parcels to new points. That took us a while, but we try to put a time frame. Let's try to get it done by this point. Well, if people come in, 911 happens, we get pulled off of that stuff. So sometimes it takes longer. Right now, Tim's going through and redoing the land use to the new imagery. That takes a while. He has to look at every parcel, whether the irrigated has changed or there's new irrigated. I mean, he's helping bring in more money by doing that.
Yeah, and I've heard this over and over again about the money that's brought into the county by the services provided by the mapping department. And I hear about this, but no one's ever explained it to me. how does that money come in? Where does it come from?
Well,
How
if-
do we earn it?
If we have accurate data, it goes to the assessor and he's able to assess it that way. If we have a field that has been irrigated, that hasn't been picked up, you're losing out on that,
I see.
on that money. It could be valued as grass instead of irrigated.
Okay.
That's a perfect example of that. When I started with Lincoln County, one of my jobs was to go around and see if it was irrigated. Well, this one piece of property had a pivot on it. They jacked, you know, Robert can probably attest to this, from just farm ground to irrigated, there's quite a difference in the taxes that are assessed on it. We jacked his taxes up, the assessor did, we never heard from him. Do you know why we never heard from him protesting? Cause he had had that pivot for a couple of years. He got by with it. That's where your money comes in.
But on a pivot, when you have a 180 or a 160, and you put a circle on that, and you take the four corners out of it, do you add farm ground, do you remove farm ground, or do you keep it the same?
You jack the price of the farm ground up.
No, it's already farm ground, it was just gravity irrigated prior.
Oh, okay.
And then you put a pivot on it, and you cut the corners out of it. So does it stay all farm ground?
So I think, go ahead.
Does it stay all farm ground? Does
I'll just
the
let Tim
160 stay
explain.
there then if they don't irrigate the corners?
Typically what'll happen, cause we have had that, and even now I'm going through, I found a lot of stuff actually over by Lyman. But where it's been gravity irrigation or flood irrigated, and now they put a pivot on it, a lot of the times I'll have to really look at those corners. A lot of people will dry land those corners and cut alfalfa off or whatever, that's still dry land, so you're still getting higher than grass. You know, you're not cutting it all out, but it's more accurate for the taxpayer, which we always want to be fair to the taxpayer. But sometimes they don't farm it at all, it just turns
But
into
they
just
could become
grass.
a yard or they could become a home site or something like that.
Correct. Correct, and a home site, you know, home site, farm site, you guys know from protests, it changes the value also, so. But you know, there are a lot of places where people have broke out ground and put pivots on it, just cause pivots are, efficient enough that they can get water to more ground than they could flood irrigating, so. If you guys ever wanna come in and watch me do that, painstakingly, you can check it out for an hour or so.
Also, I have a whiteboard in my office and we sit down and we talk about, okay, which projects can we get done, push them out quickly. So I have a short-term list and I have a long-term list that takes us a little bit longer. So, so when we work fires, that brings in money. FEMA stuff brings in money.
Now, when you say brings in money, can you just go into a bit more detail?
Okay, so I worked that Betty's Way fire. I worked remote. I sent in maps. I was working until, 11 midnight. And the state gave us a check for my wages. And that was
And
$700
your-
or
Yeah,
so.
and your salary, so
I am.
it's not like you're
Right.
clocking overtime while you're doing
Right,
that.
I'm not.
So they're paying a piece of the salary that's paid,
Yep.
whether,
I had,
whether you're doing that work or not.
I filled out time cards, just like the firefighters do, and, Nathan sent those in.
Another thing that helps is like in a disaster where you lose power poles or
Yep.
you get gravel blown off roads, they can map that out. And you guys did that on the
We did,
storm and you
yep.
sent that in to the state and we got FEMA money
Yep.
to cover the cost of that lost gravel and stuff, so.
And, I know Tyler gets GIS money from us doing the 911. I don't know how much or what, that's his deal, but, so by us doing that service, that also brings in money.
So I guess just to go back to the productivity tracking systems, I am a proponent of these. I think we really need to know what employees are spending their time on. It helps us forecast, do we need to replace someone if they resign? Do we need to add to the staff, you know, if we stay fully staffed? It also would provide opportunities for the board to be able to say, hey, you know, we've got some efficiencies, we've got 5 hours a week from this guy that could maybe be used somewhere else. You know, when Robert talks about resources being fungible and you know, I don't think we can see that right now. And I don't think we will see that until changes are made, because we don't have these productivity tracking in place. And you know, I really don't know that we're gonna make a decision tonight, just kind of based on the information that's been shared. I think we've taken in a lot of information that needs to be digested and broken out as to okay, there's been a lot of arguments made that we need to keep these things separate, but I think a lot of the comments have been a lot of the comments have been such that, you know, this is really important work that the mapping department does, but those are still responsibilities that can be done if departments are combined. I haven't really heard of anything that would change except for the speculation that maybe more work or different job descriptions will cause services to lag. And I just can't be, you know, I think if we put 3 people from mapping down into the assessor's office, you know, if each one of those 3 people found, if the new department head could find 15 hours between the 3 people, 15 hours a week, so 5 hours per person, if we found that much efficiency to be able to, you know, pick up a couple extra tasks, I don't know that that's I think that's really what we're looking for, and I don't think we're gonna see that until changes are made, or if changes are made. You know, when we look at the assessor's background in leading organizations, I think his ability to run departments is pretty impressive. You know, if we wanted to do a deep dive into his professional background, we could do that here. But you know, this board hired him to do a job, and he's excelled at it. And based on his resume and his past experience, he can do more. He can take on more items to manage and help us find efficiencies as a county. So, I guess that's all I had.
So I would just say, I think we've kinda moved from the phase of public input to commissioners, if they have questions or comments. I think we need to do that. I think Charlie's kinda went over his. Russ, do you have anything further than what you've said already?
Not really, I think we just need to increase some efficiency, and I think it can be done, and I just, like, they're saying they're doing, 25% into the assessor's office now, which is 5% more is one whole person already there. Out of 3 people, you know. So I don't know, I'd really like to see us give it a try.
Mike?
Well, I like Tim's idea of a business plan. I think that's essential to make it work or not work. We need to know how it's gonna work, who's gonna be where, who's gonna be doing what. And the big thing is, we absolutely cannot reduce any of the services they provide now. Because I've been on the receiving end of those maps at 11, 12 o'clock at night, and they're sure appreciated. And I know in talking a little bit to Robert that that wouldn't be an issue if we did combine, but I think we need to take a breath, look at it, put together a business plan, and involve Ashley and Robert and anybody else that we feel would be essential to do that, and make sure we do it right, if we do it at all.
Ken?
So far, I'm not convinced that moving 3 people down to the assessor's office is going to be any more efficient than the way that it's working right now. If you look on your budget sheets, it's already asking for 2 more people, to pick up whatever else needs to be done. We have an operation that has been in operation for decades and working well. And so far, I haven't gotten an answer as to what is going to make it better if it's somewhere else, other than under the leadership of someone else. I question that also. So I don't know, as far as budget is concerned, I don't know where the budget savings is going to be, especially if we add 2 more people to the assessor's office. I don't know that you're saving anything. I'm not so much for combining, I'm all for cooperation. And I've seen the cooperation within these 2 departments double, triple from what it used to be. It used to be, it was just a fight, one or the other, and Susie's smiling, and we understand why. So that there always hasn't been that cooperation. I'd like to see that continue, and I'm sure that it will. It sounds like you have some good communication with the assessor's office. You're doing what needs to be done. You're doing your job, what needs to be done. And I think by doing what is being proposed here, you're going to upset something that is working very, very well, in my opinion. But mine's only 1 vote. And obviously it doesn't mean that much, but I'm going to until somebody can prove to me that this is an actual budget savings. I don't wanna do it just to do it, just because. I'm not convinced that we're doing it for a specific reason, other than maybe it's somebody's idea or whatever the case might be. And I think we can still work very well together. I think the cooperation is there, and that cooperation is gonna grow. As the assessor office grows and they become more familiar with what they need to do. You know, we have an employee here that's been with us for less than a year. He's doing fine. I don't know that adding more individuals, more responsibility is going to make his job any easier. So that's where I'm at right now, until somebody convinces me differently.
So, a couple comments and maybe questions that I would have. So, the primary reason that if I, start to be in favor of this, the primary reason would be to ultimately save money. And I think that was the way it's been presented. Again, and I would just say this isn't, the thought of some consolidation of departments, saving money is not a new idea. It's been discussed, amongst, all of us, and, again, we were involved with part of that when, the consolidation of the weed department, as I mentioned, to go along with the road department. And, the intent was to ultimately save money, and sometimes, I think we see a, situation where the immediate change might cause some, different and disruptive things, but the long-term goal would be to be, saving money, and possibly that business plan that was mentioned, would be helpful, because that's what we would do if we was starting any kind of business and helping merge those things together. So that could be a possibility. Russ, did I understand you to say that, you called, most of the counties?
I called counties that were larger. I started out smaller. I started out with Jeff Metz and asked how Jeff what kind of budget they had for mapping. He said, we don't have a mapping department. He said, our mapping and assessors and all combined. And I said, okay, I said, I didn't know that. I said, all right.
They
I said,
contract that out.
pardon me?
They contract it out with GIS works.
Right, they sub it out, subcontract it, right?
Yeah.
That's what most of the small ones do, is what I'm understanding.
Okay.
And, but you said there's 4 counties that have their own mapping department, is what you found.
Right.
Okay,
Don't you have that information from the
It's on,
salary array?
It's on
Probably.
NACO. NACO has that.
I have,
What is it? Lancaster, Grand Island is.
Grand Island isn't. Neither is Hall isn't. No, they don't have their own. I called down to Grand Island. They don't have. They have basically the same thing. They contract out.
This is the information I got from,
Charlie has their own. They don't have.
this is the information I got from NACO. Other than Sarpy, Lancaster, and Douglas, I know Cass has a separate office. So Sarpy, Lancaster, Douglas, Cass all have separate offices. And then Buffalo and Hall County, they have an interlocal, and they share their department with the cities in their counties.
I need all county.
okay. Go ahead, Tim.
I just wanna clarify, the business plan is Amanda, I just was the one that said it.
All right. Okay, all right, go ahead right now.
How many of those small counties do the outside work, like the fire maps and the emergency work that these companies do? I think that should be a high priority in the questions.
Most of them aren't $3 million out of budget. We've got to come up with $3 million for them.
Well, and I understand that, but are you gonna do it at the cost of the taxpayer?
I believe we're gonna have it, because we're not firing anyone.
No, you're not, but you're gonna lose services.
My guess is there's a whole lot of those counties that, do not provide the same service. And when we talked earlier about a $60,000 budget, I'm assuming that, or a subcontract price, I'm assuming that's to do the parcel work only, meaning the stuff that comes through from the Register of Deeds, and it's not part of doing all of those, other items that was listed on that sheet that, Ashley gave us. Many of those items would not be, part of a $60,000 bid, and that kind of stuff would have to be looked at if we look at that as far as subcontracting. But as Mike said, that would not be our preference, and, would not be something that, we would want. I mentioned the fact that indeed the control we would wanna be careful of that, and we would wanna be absolutely sure that we had the ability to draw back from doing that if we were disappointed at some point in a decision that was made. I think we all agree that the intent would not be to cut services. Now, some would argue that, it would be very difficult to provide all the same services if we were spending part of our time doing assessor type stuff, but the intention here would be to not cut services. So I think, also what Charlie said about, I don't see us making a decision on this tonight. I think we've received some information, some things that need to be confirmed, and I don't know whether this decision then gets made, when we start to finalize the budget, or quite honestly, I'm not seeing where it has to be done even that quickly if we're gonna do it, that it could be done even after budget time. That decision could still be made then, but I'm willing to hear that. But I'm of the opinion, I think what Charlie said, and I agree with, that I don't know that we're ready to make some kind of decision on that tonight.
No, I wouldn't have a problem with not making it tonight, but I'd like to work that direction and see about putting a plan together and look at the numbers.
I would encourage Robert and and or Ashley. I don't know whether you can sit down and work one together, or if you need to work one apart, but because, you're gonna come from maybe two different positions, or hopefully, if you did it together, you can come from a neutral position and see if this thing really works or doesn't. But, I would encourage you to do that, and in the meantime, commissioners can continue to gather whatever information they want to, and, but I'm sure this will be back on the agenda again. And we'll go from there.
Yeah, I would suggest you'd actually visit the office
Right.
and let them show you what they're doing. I don't know
Right.
that everybody's
too.
had that opportunity to do.
I don't know that they do either.
Yeah.
I would guess, Russ, you're the supervisoring, person for Ashley's office. And if I know Russ, he gets there and gets to see things more than I ever did or do. The only contact, I had quite a bit of contact with the mapping department when we were going through the, what you call it, match to mapping project that the state helped us try and get through. And I did spend quite a bit of time at that time, but, I haven't been through their office very often since, and I need to do that. So as you said, I'd encourage all of us to, stop in and take a look, along with other departments too, but
Yeah,
that one specifically right now.
Yeah, I've stopped in their office several times, and I try to stop in most offices at least once a month.
Right.
But yeah, they've been a wealth of knowledge for me, and, they're always really good to visit with.
Sure. So, I guess, is there any action to be taken on this
Well,
tonight as
I
far
asked
as?
for it to be, I'd like to make a motion to table this, but I'd like it to be on the old business. So we discuss it regularly, for a month or so and see where we're at.
Okay, so your motion would be to table, but to move it to, reoccurring old business. Okay. Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to table this item, but move it to old business as a reoccurring item, like we've had some of the others. All right, any other discussion? If not, let's go ahead and vote.
You have 4 yeses and 1 no.
Okay, so the motion carries, and, so it needs to be added to the old business item.
Can we take a short
And then-
break?
Yeah,
Please.
I meant to mention it early on, but, we're gonna take a 5-minute break, try and be back in 5 minutes, and, we'll proceed. We'll call the meeting back to order. So the next item on the agenda is to receive inventories from the Director of Public Works, Weed, Building and Grounds, and the Treasurer. I believe we've been sent those items, and, this is a kind of a formality. We have to affirm that we've received these inventories.
Correct.
And, so my understanding is, we need to have a motion to receive them and vote on it. So is there a motion that we've received these?
I move that we receive the inventories for Director of Public Works, Weed, Buildings and Grounds, and Treasurer.
I'll
Is there-
second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Let's go ahead and vote.
Let me see if I can get this
Mine says A.
Yeah, mine says A also.
Oh,
We were gonna do a voice roll.
Okay, go
Okay.
ahead. We're gonna do a voice, vote, kinda requested that.
Blue,
Yes.
Knapper,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes,
Meyer,
Yes.
Reisig.
Yes.
alright, so we'll go on to the next item, which is old business. we'll, go to the item of clerk of district court window remodel. Darla, come on up.
It is almost done. They put the third piece of glass in today with the ADA counter. So what they're working on now is the framing doesn't exactly match, so they're gonna piece some of that together, and then we have an open, I don't know what the terminology is, but at the front, these tiles don't sit, so they have to build out and enclose that hole where the tiles are up front, cause they took out the two metal curtains that come down, and it left a big space up above, false ceiling. But it looks much better. The next thing, the final thing that I'll need to do is get some kind of a privacy cover that I can close the windows when we are not open.
Put it on the inside.
Put it on the inside, yes.
Good.
Yep, so,
All right,
Little
sounds
by
like
little,
we're
it's
making
good.
progress,
Yep,
huh?
yep.
Any questions for Darla?
The main thing was to be safer.
it is
Right.
safer.
Yeah.
It is safer, thanks. Come take a look.
Yeah. All right, thanks for the update. We'll go on to the next item, which is time clock plus and payroll processes. Lisa, do you have anything?
Nope, we're getting ready to set up the integration. I had to pay the bill for the programming that needs to happen, so.
Okay.
Charlotte gonna be able to put that together, run the thing when it gets her. Is Charlotte doing that, or is that girl?
That's between the two of us.
Two of
Yeah, cause I run TCP right now. Between Kim and I, we do TCP and then we have to work with her, so. Anyway, and hopefully the clerk's office will be able to cooperate with us to give us that resource. Cause obviously she's the payroll side, so.
So we're making some progress there.
Yes, bit by
Okay.
bit. I've been kinda busy on a budget, so it's,
Any other
Not my priority.
questions on that? All right, we'll move on to the next part of the agenda, public comments. The Board of Commissioners will receive public comments on items discussed at this meeting or suggestions for items of discussion at future board meetings. We will not take any action on any items brought up tonight. So is there anyone from the public that would like to make any comments? All right, seeing none, then we'll proceed with board and staff reports. With any discussion, let's start with staff, I guess, on this side. Kinda, do you know of anything from the clerk's office?
We are just gearing up for the next election, working on that. We have one protest filed for our next round, today.
When does that close, kinda?
I believe it was the 27th, if I
Okay.
counted correctly, so hopefully we won't have too many, but, no, just election, petitions, that kind of stuff.
All right. Steve, anything?
The river bridge damage turned me up, severe is my first thought, so it's gonna probably be less than $5,000 chip out what they went through, so, they're moving along pretty good, so we're working on the joints now, so.
that's good.
Any thought of completion date?
They were thinking 2 more weeks, but they're gonna add probably another 3 days on because of the cure time from the concrete they did replace, before they can get that, so I'm guessing end of the month, probably.
Is that replacement on us or the contractor?
The concrete
Yeah.
is on us. For the damage done by some joyride.
And that's the way the contract is written, is what you told me.
On page 7.
Well, we need to protect it with our money then, to be sure that doesn't happen again.
And I guess if we know,
The sheriff's office found anything out, any cameras or not, so.
and I guess if we know that's the case, then it may, in the future, give us a whole different perspective as to how that job site needs to be left every evening and that type of thing.
You bet. If
That
we're gonna
is.
be responsible, we have gotta block it.
Then we have to act like we're responsible for it,
We do.
so. All right. Okay, anything else, Steve? Alright, Jackie, we should back up, so we're doing, board and staff reports, do you have anything that you wanna tell us?
Our fall programming, I'm letting them know the programs as well. Our 4-H stuff is getting ready for state fair, so there's always some programming that we're being
Right.
to run or promote.
Very good. State fair, is that Labor Day weekend?
Well, it starts
Okay, this weekend.
this Friday, then we set up
Goes a full week, doesn't it? Okay,
until Wednesday is last.
alright. Other staff? Kurt? Darla?
No, other than just, we are approaching $500, filed felonies and about that much in civils at this point. So it's kind of, it's not high, but, we're on the increase.
And that's, since
Yeah,
Our-
January 1.
that's calendar
January
year.
one. I was gonna say, if it's our fiscal year, that's quite a few.
Yes, in a month, wow.
So, since January,
We have more felony filings than Buffalo County.
okay. Kinda proves out what some of you tell us all the time. It's interesting you would tell us that right before budget time. So, Lisa?
Okay, we tentatively scheduled our joint public hearing. It'll be held September 24th, which is a Tuesday. We have to hold the joint public hearing, cause the county is responsible for coordinating the hearing, whether we participate or not. And it's between the dates, this is all per the state, okay, that we're not making that up. 14th through the 24th, and we wanna hold it on the 24th. Part of what the, NACO and the APA is saying, hold it later rather than earlier to allow for, postcards to reach the people that they are being mailed to. Because our people are, each subdivision, you know, the city of Scotts Bluff, city of Gearing, city of Terrytown, the schools all have to report to the county assessor, I think it's September 6th, whether or not they're going to be participating and give them certain numbers, okay? And then Robert has to do his inner workings with, his software, get that information to MIPS, who will print our postcards and send them. So our joint public hearing is September 24th, 6:05, Mitchell Public Schools Auditorium has agreed to hold the public hearing. So,
You said Mitchell High School, right?
yeah, yes. I don't have an address on me, but probably most people.
September 24th, 6:05.
Right,
Yeah.
so.
Alright,
that
and
was
that's the pink postcard meeting that we talked
Yes.
about.
And then after we have the pink postcard meeting, then we will need to do our budget hearings, budgets and levy setting hearings, so that's Tuesday, and I have to file by Monday the 30th, so you will need to think about what date, cause Wednesday isn't good, you have NACO meetings in the morning, and I think Kelly said she's out all day on Wednesday, so like Thursday or Friday. So we'll have to do our budget hearings, just putting that in your brain, it shouldn't, what?
Okay,
I have something to say. I saw that you talked to
Okay,
Kind
yeah.
already.
Oh, okay,
that's all right,
and
we'll go back.
my other thing is, I was listening to your July 1st commissioner meeting that I missed. And it was commented many times that we don't take some things very seriously, and I wanted you to know that we are gonna be talking to TCD about grants tomorrow afternoon. They
Okay,
have a grant writer, and I know Jay and I'll be there, and I was going to invite Kelly, didn't happen, I didn't get it confirmed till today, cause our talk was something with the windows, it's a energy performance grant, and then I know Charlie had mentioned in that meeting something about the high streets and roads, or, I can't remember what the name of that grant
Safe
was.
streets.
So we'll bring that up, but this is just the first meeting, we'll get to talking, I was gonna invite Kurt too, so.
Okay.
Cause he likes to deal with
Yeah.
grants, just to,
with the city hearing on the Safe Streets, we're all granted as well, so.
have ya, okay.
Scotts Bluff doesn't work,
And this,
Okay.
I think
anything else, Lisa?
I think we're meeting with Steve Pedrazi and Jordan, that's all I was gonna say for just staff reports.
Okay. We're going back to, Ms. Kelly.
So, I got values from Robert today, but I do think that we have to take action before before September 1st, so I may have to call you guys for a special meeting real fast for preliminary levies, fire districts, cemeteries. I can't remember my tabs across, there's about 5 of them that have preliminary requests that we have to take action on.
So when are you
Since-
saying that we would possibly do those?
It depends on what you tell me right now. Cause I was thinking a quick one after work on the 26th, maybe, so that we had it done. Cause I've already plugged in the numbers Robert got to me, and I am still waiting on other counties.
Can we, let me get my sheet out here. Can we talk about the meetings coming up that we know about? We have one Wednesday,
We
right?
have Wednesday, the 21st, 1 to 7 is what we're scheduled,
That's a budget meeting.
budget discussion. Our next regular meeting will be Tuesday, September 3rd.
Yeah, that's important. It's Tuesday, the 3rd, because of the holiday.
Because of the holiday. And then the next regular
Labor
meeting
Day.
after that would be September 16th on a Monday again.
17th.
And then Lisa, you're talking, you want to meet like the 29th and 30th of August?
Well, depends on how Wednesday goes.
Okay. Oh, wait. When does your budget have to be done? You were talking in September.
September 30th I have to file.
Okay, you were talking September 26th and 27th maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And then you say 26th and 27th, you're talking one of those. One of the two, not both.
One of the two, and it could be at 8 in the morning. I think you've done that before since I've been here. Okay. August 29th is personnel board meeting at 4:30. Mark Harrison's involved in that. Regional governance, September 4th. Since Ken is stepping down, I think you'll need somebody will need that on their calendar.
When is it?
September 4th at noon at WNCC. I guess that would probably be Mark.
Well, I'll tentatively plan that, but by that point in time, we may have had that reorganization and it may or may not, end up being me, so.
Just throwing it
But
out there.
I'll kinda tentatively be thinking that way.
So it doesn't go to you automatically?
Well,
And you need to find a vice president, or you're gonna completely
I don't know
Vice
the answer.
President. President?
I thought
vice
that we
vice
had
chair?
we'll ask,
I think as the vice chair, you automatically step into that position as chairman, and then you would
Possibly.
appoint a vice chair
Find a vice
to
chairman,
replace
not
him.
not a
Whatever-
Mr. President.
whatever these are, we're talking till January, and,
Yeah,
So your
and
only
then
job right now is to
totally
pick a vice chairman.
alright, so we'll
But you
assume
can
that
take
for
that
now,
what it's worth.
so,
I didn't leave enough room for board and staff.
so, any more meetings in August that anyone knows about? Okay,
Not on purpose ones.
right,
Oh, like I said, depending on how the 21st goes, I might need another meeting for budget, but we'll
okay,
see how that.
we'll see how that, we won't set that till that night or something, okay,
Well, don't forget, I need time to advertise.
Yeah, exactly. Oh,
I mean,
and
we put, and any other dates that you need, but I don't think that's
Oh.
good policy.
okay. So, Russ, do you have anything?
I know there's some things going on with the road and bridge, but we don't have, I don't have anything resolved that we can really discuss.
Okay. Mike?
Do I be able to admin building here quite a bit this week, the week before. Other than that, I haven't had any meetings lately.
Okay, Ken?
I had all my Thursday meetings. Nothing spectacular happened at any of them, needs to be reported. I will let you know I may not be here on Wednesday. My wife meets with a trauma surgeon tomorrow morning. And they would like to do surgery right away. If that happens, as much as I would love to be here, I think I would stay with my wife. But I'll let Kelly know or somebody know whether I'll be here on Wednesday.
Charlie? And, yeah,
Tourism meeting last Wednesday went fairly well. We're working on developing a process to limit the number of times organizations, or rather, I'd rather say, limit the times that the tourism committee awards, grant monies. Currently thinking we would do this at 2 different times in the year, about 6 months apart. Currently, we award grant money on a rolling basis every month, depending on who applies. This would allow for more competitive grants. I believe this would allow for grantees to develop ideas that are bigger and brighter and greater than they might get if they were, just coming in every 30 days to apply. Knowing that it's gonna be a more competitive process, I think we'll get the best applications from each of these organizations that like to apply for the money. So, yeah, we're looking at 2 different times a year to do that. But that policy is going to be introduced at the next. It was discussed this meeting, and the written words will be introduced at the next tourism meeting. So that was encouraging, and that's all I got.
okay. The only thing I have to say is that our annual meeting of the Heartland Express is being held in Shadron this Thursday, I think it is. And I'm still a little iffy as to whether I'm gonna be able to attend. If anybody else is interested, let us know. Or let me know, and we can get the arrangements made with Deb Cottier. But, anyway, we'll go from there. Any other items under this? If not, we'll go to legislation. Anything, I know with the legislature meeting, go ahead, Lisa.
I was just gonna mention Senator Ricketts is gonna be at Legacy of the Plains Wednesday at 9:30,
Okay,
as if you didn't have that.
okay, good, so that's a legislative item. Any others, Charlie, any updates on what's going on right now?
So it looks like final reading will be tomorrow. It looks very likely that it's gonna pass this LB, I think it's 34, they're calling it now. It was LB1, then it was LB3, then it was LB9, now it's LB34.
Wonder it's hard to follow.
It looks like a 0% cap or the slice index is what counties will be held to for, their abilities to grow their budgets. And the slice index is it's like CPI, but it pulls in pieces that government, it takes into account what government spends money on. Insurance, vehicles, building maintenance, salaries, those sorts of things. There should be carve-outs where there is no cap on increasing spending for public safety, attorneys, sheriff's departments. I think those are the three big ones.
Schools are in there as well, aren't they?
The schools have been completely eliminated from all of the proposed legislation in this special session. There will be no change to, school funding as a result of this special session. So,
I was showing Charlie earlier, one of the emails I got that was talking about, one of the senators proposed some additional taxes on what he called, and I call sin tax, and, meaning several different, things like alcohol and cigarettes and things like that. But one of the things specifically I saw was that there would be a new tax on Keno revenues. And I think that we pay them 2% now, and they were talking about that going to 20%.
Ouch.
So that
Wow.
would be a significant change for us, and so just be aware of that. I don't know whether that passed or not, but that was one of the proposals on one of the emails I saw. So, again, and I was confirming with some of these guys earlier that any and all of this stuff would be effective next year, is what I understand. Has nothing to do with this year's budget. But if indeed we have, information of 0% increase over, in some of the departments, then things would, it might change a little bit of our thinking for this year, is what Russ was describing. But if we're gonna, is final reading then also mean, when would that be voted on?
tomorrow.
Tomorrow. So at least we'll have some heads up, hopefully, soon, and exactly what it's gonna say. All right, anything else on legislation from anybody? All right, then our last item is budget discussion. We had talked about doing, some budget things yet tonight.
Are you up for it?
Well, that's the question I have for this group. Are we up for it, or?
I wanna give you a little info. just
Okay,
before
let's do
you-
at least a little bit, and then
if-
we'll see what happens.
If I can get
See if
into
we
it.
nod off or not.
Yeah, Robert gave me numbers, and it didn't go the right direction.
It didn't go the right?
It did not go the right direction.
Is my screen in your way?
No, it just wasn't advancing. I'm
Okay.
here now, I just gotta
Okay.
log on.
I was like, I can disconnect, I think.
And I hope I have it, no, you're fine. And I'm hoping I could save it right, saved it to the right drive here, so. There's me. So last year we operated on a 2% growth plus 0.55 growth factor. On that 2% they call allowable growth. Okay, just a second. With the information he provided me, we cannot go up by 0.55, we go up by 0.29. So we lose some, and I'm sorry, yeah, I didn't get this saved to the right drive. 3357246. There you go. Before, this number here was 344,000, that's what we've been talking through this last few, or last week. It's now 309,000.
309.
309. So my current disparity, if we're still looking at this, is 2.8 million.
Now, which numbers are you saying didn't go the right way?
The growth percentage.
growth
that where
wasn't
it says
enough.
0.28, last year was 0.55. That's how much we can increase over last year's spending.
Okay.
So here's the last year numbers.
And you were assuming the same,
Well, we just are, we don't get to go up as much.
last year we sold some property.
Yeah,
As far as
you know,
income,
it's just his,
yeah.
the value and what gets plugged into these cells. He increased a lot of stuff. Robert didn't do anything wrong, it's
No,
just how it all landed,
Right,
so.
but I guess,
And I wanna show you, I'm trying to get this out to you, I changed my format a bit. And this is, what I'm handing you is with .55, not the new numbers, cause I had already printed it, okay? Before, cause he brought this to me like fourth thing today or something like that. There's been a lot of, it's confusing for you to try to understand when I'm telling you about changes in different departments, correct, especially when they're in their own fund and it's impacted by previous balances, or the balance in the fund. So I added what the starting funds were for, and it's just these areas. So you can see, for instance, roads. Last year, the budget that was passed was for $7.7 million. This year, his budget is, Steve's budget is standing at 8.2. He did give me some changes today, and I think he's gonna give me a few more. We were talking about, he's giving me a look, yes. There's, just for him, he has some positions that were scheduled, or he had projected the whole year, but he hasn't filled them, and we're already 2 months in. We can do some adjusting for that. But anyway, and this is what we budgeted for revenue in the roads department. This is what he's projecting this year. So, and then where his fund balances were last year, his fund started off, this year what it is, and this is the tax ask. So, the same with detention center. Last year we budgeted at the end of the year 7.7 million. Right now we're sitting at 8.1 million in expenses. And the differences in the revenue from year to year. I just think that hopefully that'll give you a little clearer picture, because we start talking, oh, well, they didn't really change that much, but you needed to see expenses to expenses, revenue to revenue, and then look at that
Most of
fund
that revenue
balance.
is just a guess anyway, isn't it, Lisa?
Oh, yes,
We don't-
of course, it's just a guess,
we
but
don't-
when
we
I'm
don't
showing
know.
you just a blank number for these other funds, because government and fund accounting, we mostly operate out of the general fund. I know it's kinda hard to think about how we move our money around. So, anyway, I wanted to give you some of that information along with a little more analysis regarding the changes in the expenses. I mean, you can go and do your own. Last year's, we budgeted this much for expenses, this year we're at this amount, and what the percentage changes are. Anyway, that's what I wanted to show you. I've handed to you, so maybe you can look a little more apples to apples. And then you go into those spreadsheets to see a little more detail on what Heather proposed for her expenses, and you can go see where it went down. Kinda get my gist? Like I said, I'm trying my best to try to get it so it kinda gels.
How many how many jobs are we currently
Okay.
advertising for or need to fill?
Can I go look at the website?
Or I could go look at your board,
Yeah, you can look at my
Court
board,
board.
but it's on the website.
And
I'm
is
thinking-
is
Kim-
everything that's on the job board also in the budget? Or does the budget reflect more FTEs than what's on the job board?
I'm thinking we're budgeting for what's on that job board. For instance, like I just mentioned with Steve, he's had an equipment operator 2 on my board for 3 months, and or 2 months, yeah, well, I don't know, it's for several months. We haven't filled it yet. And so therefore, but he budgeted it for 12 months. Like, for the whole year, but it hasn't been filled yet. I think I'm kinda deviating from your question,
No,
but
that
this
answers,
is,
that's exactly what I'm looking for.
totally-
But what about Robert's positions?
right now, he's not posted.
Okay.
We had taken that
You weren't
down.
posted.
Did I?
but they're in the budget,
They're in the budget, but
They're
they're
in the
not on the job board. Okay.
right, 'cause
We
in
got some,
his case, they're not authorized yet.
Kurt just posted for a dispatcher, he just lost a person, so. Deputy Public Defender, District Road Supervisor, Steve has to fill a foreman position. Public Defender, Tri-City Road Runner, part-time driver, equipment operator 2, corrections officers. We always post the corrections officers and they schedule, they lose people and then they do a hiring. They hire like 4 or 5 all at once, so they can all go through training together. So we aren't trying to train one at a time, we train in groups. But sheriff had asked we just leave correction officer up, and I'm not sure when the next training class is scheduled. Okay? That makes sense. I think we just had one in June, I'm gonna say. And then, of course, attorney, I would say that's county attorney, that's public defender, anywhere we can get an attorney, then we'll figure out where they're gonna fit. That's what's on my job board. And that was another public defender, we gotta adjust his, wages as well, 'cause same thing, he's budgeted, I think they budgeted for the full year, well, we got a few months that we know we're not going to be paying out, because we've already started our budget year.
So the reason for my question was, before we start talking about RIF, we need to talk about hiring freeze. And before we talk about hiring freeze, I think we need to continue the discussion of consolidating departments. I think it would be, maybe we should let the departments tell us where they think they can consolidate. Rather than us being the big bad wolf, maybe there's some incentives to having employees identify opportunities for us.
How about we put a lid on expenses, whatever percent we're gonna give, instead of saying 3% overall, give a realistic number so we can get this budget aligned and let them find it.
Are you talking about the wage increase?
No, well, whatever increase.
Total
We may have to
increase.
adjust that wage increase, cause the county's not building any, we're not building any money at all for inflation. We're handing it all out. We're not picking up any money for fuel increases, tire increases, any increases, lawnmower gas, nothing. Somewhere we've gotta come up with.
Can they use the fueling station too?
Fueling station's making money, so that's a good thing.
Yeah,
That-
even the
Saving
that's headed
money,
the right
not
direction, don't
making
you, Chris? Police ought to know how that's working.
We're just in the infancy of that,
No.
but it's gotta be better at 2.89 a gallon versus 3.20, whatever.
Yeah, well, you can drive right up to the fuel station and see the difference, Exactly.
But we went a month where they were still going to Legacy Co-op. So they still have to have a little bit of that gas in their budget. Anyway, we're getting that all arranged. Finagled on the budget. But you're right, and then when you start talking about, some of the union contracts, that's our biggest dollars, we've already agreed upon that. And, do you take away everybody else's COLAs? That's kinda hard hit, but
We decided early on in the process that we were gonna give a 3.5% wage increase. Typically, we don't do that until the very end. And it's usually at the very end, and that's when we decide, is it gonna be 2, is it gonna be 2.5, is it gonna be 3? And we swung for the fences right away at 3.5 at the very beginning of this process. I would really like us to be able to stay with that number for wage increases.
Well,
But
you
it's
guys
gotta
all
come.
have a sheet with green writing on it right now. I'm gonna show this, I don't think you've seen this yet. Got another one of these right here, research this one.
He talked to you about this.
Well, she can have mine when we're done. But anyway, you guys look at this, I'm gonna explain this, have Robert print this out for me. Off of his, pardon,
Yeah, just real quickly,
you just run that off for me,
Russ asked me to give him a levy calculator, that
that you could use.
if we had X in value, what would be taxable value,
Would you show?
and,
Maybe you understand.
it's very basic, just directionally correct, and just different scenarios that, what if the board chose a budget and a variety of things, and these are cells that can be updated.
I think we're gonna have to use that, folks.
What kind of threshold, similar to what you're doing, but a little calculator where they can just punch it in and say, if we go above X, we're gonna have to have go to a pink postcard. Yep.
Once you
Yeah, I
see
can
that.
send it to you. Okay.
I
This
think-
is,
You
this
have-
is good.
No, I wanted to at least have something so we had a plan B, 'cause right now we don't have a plan B anywhere in our little bag of tricks.
Well, I think, so what you're proposing with this is going above, is
Going-
basically, what you're proposing with this is that we need to go onto the pink
We're
postcard.
gonna have to get a pink postcard. That's right. I know nobody wants to do that, but we're not following inflation, guys. And in 2 to 3, next year is gonna be worse than this year, and the year after is gonna be a heck of a lot worse.
Lisa, one of the years you gave us some numbers that went back to pay increases by 1%, 2%, 3%.
Oh, yeah.
What those are. Could you print one of those up for us next time?
I could do that.
Yeah.
I just will
That-
forewarn you, that's gonna affect, you know, the people that would be affected by a
Right,
COLA.
right.
Not the
But
not
that
the
gives you
unions.
some idea of what cause every department has built in their 3% in the numbers that they've given us. So if we know what those numbers are by percentage, then that gives you an idea of what the total amount of,
I'll do
at
my
least the
best.
increase is going to be.
Mhm.
So you're gonna increase it by a flat number, Ken?
No, what, the 3% as per department on their budget, what they're asking for.
Right.
And when she figures it out, a 1% costs you this much, a 2% costs you this much, 1.5 costs, she did it, I don't know, 2-3 years ago, I don't remember how long it was. It was very helpful, so you have some idea of what the impact of the pay increases were.
A 3.5% COLA, throwing it out there, might be like,
Yeah.
just like $550,000. What would a 2.5% COLA be?
And that's total budget, total impact
Yeah,
on the budget.
That makes sense to see that.
so we'll pull that together. Do you want certain departments, for me to get them here for Wednesday? Or do we wanna schedule
We're just
meetings?
looking at this stuff and we're just moving it through. I think we need to give them a mission to find, there's money in there, there's some. I mean, it might not be a lot, but there's some in there. I don't know where else you wanna get it from. Either we're gonna get a pink postcard, or some of these people are gonna have to go back and find the money for us.
Yeah. But I remind you that it isn't always the employee's initiative to worry about the pink postcard. So,
I realize that.
No, and
But
I think,
I'm saying that to the board.
yeah,
And it's not the end of the world if you get a pink postcard.
I think-
Everybody seems to be afraid of that.
I have to agree with that.
You show up and you explain your budget and you move forward.
yeah,
I
same.
heard a legislator yesterday, I believe, not yesterday, probably Friday, was talking about how stupid he felt the pink postcard was. I think I
true.
talked with you about that. And he wasn't alone, there were others that felt the same way.
I agree with Ken, because I went to the meeting last year and wasted my time other than learning something, but, because
Learned it wasn't too bad of a.
nothing you can do about it anyway. I
Can
mean,
give you a
I
spanking.
guess it makes people feel good, but it doesn't
They-
change anything.
No,
No,
Are-
we're back to, they need to be at your budget workshops.
Yeah.
yeah.
So with this, there's something on here, it explains where we can actually we can still increase our revenue while decreasing the levy.
It's not decreasing the I don't think it,
How can you increase your revenue without increasing your levy unless you're getting other grants or money from elsewhere?
Well,
oh,
values
it's gonna
went
increase
up.
our,
But you still will go to pink postcard.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you could go to the pink postcard and still lower your levy.
Or even keep your levy the same.
well,
Yeah.
I think
I
what,
think we can do that.
and I'm still of the thought process of the 2.5%. And if I'm in the minority, I understand I would be in the minority. But at this point in time, that's still where I'm at. And it still, gives a point to, for us to start the process. Now, quite honestly, I'd kinda, what I'd like to kinda do sometime in the future would be that we set a percentage. Surely we have a percentage that we think enough is enough.
I agree.
And where is enough enough? And at the very least,
It,
these budgets need to be built that way.
it's all, our enough is on the spending side, and it's on the taxable side. We should only tax so much, and we should only spend so much.
I agree. And as many politicians say, we don't have an income problem, we have a spending problem.
We do.
And,
Why-
the spending is what gets us generally in trouble. And, so
But
I would only say that, yeah, again, I would only remind you, and I need to go back and make sure that I am absolutely right on this, but I still believe that we're in the same situation of being the third highest mill levy for counties in the entire state. And I still say that, how in the world is it that we should be third highest in the state?
You don't wanna cut any luxury items, if you wanna have the largest sheriff's department, the largest jail, and the largest judicial system, and this end of, from Lincoln to here,
Right.
well, you're probably gonna have that.
I don't, but Darla was reminding us of that tonight.
Plus
Yeah.
a few roads to repair.
Yeah, well, and so many roads, that's what Kurt's back here saying, we have 800.
We have one of the highest mileage county roads per capita.
And the most
Per square-
bridges.
per square mile in the
There's
state.
not another county has more bridges than we do.
There you go.
Nowhere.
Costs.
I
So-
think we're comparable with the larger counties on the services we have to provide and things like that, but we're not comparable in the population to pay the taxes. I think it kind of messes with us all the time.
Well,
Or the valuation.
I think it can be somewhat, but I would only say that,
Lincoln was like 1 billion more than us. And the same,
Lincoln County or the city
Lincoln
or
County.
Lancaster County.
Lincoln County, North
The-
Platte.
In value, you're saying.
Yeah, their valuations
Is
can,
another
like a,
billion, 4
like a
billion.
billion more, and they have,
That's
Well-
exactly right, and but it's, Douglas County, I believe, Lancaster County, and then the last I looked, it was Scotts Bluff County was next on mill levies. And and then after that, it's, those largest ones, and I'm just asking, why is it that we have to be there? And the fact is, we don't have to be. Now, yeah, it might mean at some point, what you said, Russ, before, was sometimes we have to make hard decisions, and we haven't done that in the last 5 years that I've been here. And, so, but the fact is, we have things pretty decent here as far as facilities go and, equipment and those kind of things. I don't see us hurting in those areas. I don't, I'd love to get to the point someday, and I know some of you won't agree with this, but I'd love to get to the point someday where we had constituents coming to us say, you know, doggone it, we need more people in downstairs, the lines are too long. We're not getting the services we need. We need you to spend more money on those kinds of things. I never heard it once, not one single time have I heard that.
The other thing with our mill levy is the school districts, with 5 school districts. If we ever get to where they merge a couple of our little outside school districts, go to 2 or 3 school districts, you know, that would change this whole picture a lot.
Well, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you, but we can only change certain things, and the mill levy I'm talking about is the county-only mill levy.
What was the number he gave us for Lincoln County? A billion?
I like $1 billion more than us, for
Yeah,
sure.
they have
4 billion
They
in,
have 33,000 people in Lincoln County,
How many do we
which
have?
is about the same.
36,000.
Right. So,
And they have interstate and big businesses, and, yeah. And 1 billion might be low. So they get to keep their mill levy lower and provide the services, and they probably don't operate 100% of the comm center out of the county, cause they probably share it with North Platte, I guess I don't know. Tyler, do you know, is he here?
The, so our total valuation that you're anticipating, Robert, for this year is how much?
What was it first?
Total valuation,
Total valuation.
3,612,000.
3.612.
What I gave you today.
Yeah, I think that's what he's asking you.
Yeah.
It's, for this
What?
year, 3,859,000.
Oh,
You're talking about total dollar.
Total taxable value.
Hang on, let me write that down.
3,859,000,059,332.
To be exact.
Three, how much, Kelly?
3,859,059,332. God bless you.
did you give them copies,
I
or
have
we can,
not.
we can give
I'm,
it to
I'm
you?
mailing them all out tomorrow.
Right.
Feel free to.
Yeah, 3.8 billion,
Correct.
right. And
Last year
that's-
was 3.6.
Right, so getting a little closer to that 4 billion that you're talking about.
Well-
But,
Somebody look that
I still am a little confused how our growth is that much less when we just said that we found, how many million? Was
Oh,
it
wait.
4 million tonight when you said that,
Between 3 and 4 million that we
Okay.
picked up.
But that just goes on the top of the three.
well, but
on
that's
the
certainly
valuation.
growth.
That's
Wouldn't,
correct.
that's
Yeah.
part of our growth number, isn't it?
It is.
If it's building permitted, it certainly
That's
would
right.
be,
That's right.
yeah,
So that's a portion of the growth.
okay. Well, I know the one thing that was, Charlie was bringing up the issue of the COLA, and I like the fact that we tried, that we try and set a number that can be built into the budgets rather than trying to add it all at the end. I like that. I think, when we give a suggested COLA next time, that it's really, that we understand that it's suggestion only, and
That's right.
until we get to the bottom line, that's a,
I think the one we-
number that we might not be able to stay with.
Where we're at right now is only a suggestion, isn't it?
That were in the wage study
I don't know,
over the last 3 years.
that's my question.
No, we probably should. And excuse me, Lincoln County, 5,771,000, so they're
what they're
2
up to.
billion more than us.
That's what they're up to now.
Yeah, well, last year. So this year, they're probably over 6. And their budget is 16.5 million last year. That's just them.
Well, I think this again gives us a overview, kind of where we're at, this sheet particularly. And, I know that I've heard from Russ, maybe at the last meeting and particularly this meeting, and Ken as well, that, it may be a point in time of having to go, past the 2.5. And that law says 2% plus a half for, what was it?
Growth. And that was last year was our number. This
Growth.
year, our number is 2.29.
Okay, wasn't there something in there about, when cooperation and you could get a little more
Oh,
if
you get
had-
some interlocal agreements. Yes,
Interlocal.
that gets added in here as
But
well.
that,
Right.
yeah, but that doesn't affect the pink postcard issue, that affects the lid,
Right.
that's kinda like the
that
hard
we're
stop.
under, oh,
That's
yeah,
like the hard stop.
right,
But if you look at the increase I've showed you on that paper there, we're looking at 0.03% per $100. I mean, that's like, that is
Well, if we, I guess I'll just make some comments. I think, I'm with Mark. I think the goal here should be to stay off the pink postcard. And not because it's a pink postcard and not because it's, you know, this thing we need to stay away from. But because it represents a goal. It represents the county's opportunity to police itself. For years, this county did not do that. For years, this county overspent. High levies, bonds. You know, we're still paying on bonds that were taken out years ago, and we're still, you know, that can was kicked down the road, and we're still responsible for those, and when those things come due, when those things are done being paid for, then there's gonna be some opportunities there to start, but those are years down the road.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when we joined this board because the previous boards did not do their job fiscally. And that's the job we signed up for,
That's right.
and that's the job we need to continue to do. And we're gonna tighten this belt as much as it needs to be tightened to make, because we ran for these positions and we knew what we were getting into.
I have
And
not.
that's where we are today, and it's gonna be that way for many more years. This is, you know, in these times, in these inflationary times, you know, we all hear about shrinkflation. When you go to the grocery store, you know, you're getting less for the same amount. You might be getting 8 ounces instead of 10 ounces for the same amount. Well, shrinkflation in government works in our favor. This is our opportunity to shrink government.
Then we're gonna need to bring something, each one of us need to bring something here that we can trim the fat out of it and stand behind it and make it happen. So I think you guys I brought mine to the table. I think we need to bring some more and look at it.
Well, I think when we come back on Wednesday, that's what we're gonna be faced with.
Would
Those
you
kind of
like
things.
certain people here, certain departments represented, or just everybody should be part? Or available to be called, or what do you think?
I mean, the first thing we can do is this board can take action to put a hiring freeze in place. We can say hiring freeze as of today. This board can take that action.
You could. How do you handle the attorney thing?
Is that the one that's contracted with Zell?
Well, yes and no, it's just that Dave's got, what, 3 in his office, and anyway, just,
Yeah, and then
And
the
it's
question
just-
starts to come, are there exceptions and things like that, so.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, we would
It's-
have to address that at the time. But and one of the things I think that, you would be showing us there is how the levy has come down. And it has, but that's the same, it's the same thing that's happening statewide. Property values are going way up on a curve that looks almost like this, and levies are coming down. And so ours came down.
well, you
But it's
worked, we
requiring
worked it
more money
last
to
year.
operate.
Right.
Costs more money to operate, you're still gonna have
Right.
to ask for more money.
But
Absolutely,
they
but last-
should come down, right? When the valuations go up here, the valuations, and we've been telling people at protest hearings for 13 days, we told them, we're gonna do our part to make sure those mill levies stay down. We can't guarantee all the other entities, but we're gonna work hard on keeping those mill levies down.
You went to the last joint public hearing, didn't you? And do you remember, we haven't raised our levy in 10 years.
Yep.
But all they did was spend every bit of value
Right.
that the assessor gave them.
Right, so her
All the time.
point is there were a couple entities that said, we haven't changed our mill levy, they were pink postcard people. And of course, the valuations went up so high that they were, increasing the amount of money that they brought in substantially.
Yeah, and they
So
didn't
to
limit.
say we haven't raised our mill levy means nothing when you have property valuations going out the top.
It's the same as when Osmus Brothers said they haven't raised their commission in 30 years, but a farm used to
Yeah.
bring 6,000, now it was bringing 70,000.
Right. But
Huh?
Scottsbluff Schools said they're lowering theirs this year.
their mill levy.
Again?
Well, they should lower their mill levy, again, with valuations where they are at.
And they paid off some bonds.
Yes,
Yeah,
they did.
They did do that, and I like that. But I know that we have certainly differences of thoughts and opinions right here. We're gonna have a, there may come a time here where we have to, vote on some areas or something individually, so we can get maybe down to the last number, I guess. And this issue of, are we gonna hold firm on the 2.5%, or are we gonna go past that? We're gonna be facing that question, I think, on Wednesday.
If we're gonna look firm on that, we know the answer right now, we don't have to wait till Wednesday, we know where we're at, we're gonna have to hold firm on a lower number. They're gonna have to, if you guys don't wanna do a pink postcard, everybody's gotta take these budgets back and work them till they're gonna fly.
Well,
We
some,
can't work them over, I mean,
I agree that,
Well-
if we're gonna say, yeah, if we're gonna say 2.5% total, then yeah, are we,
well, that's all
where do
we've
we
got
head
to work
from
with,
there?
right? That's all we're increasing is 2.5%, 2.9%.
2.29.
2.29, okay, it's worth a thought. 2.29.
Yeah, it changed today.
Okay, so that's where we're gonna have to be on everything. I mean, the whole department's gonna have to come up 2.29,
So
and they'll have to figure out their COLA out of that,
So it's, okay, COLA
or whatever.
So Robert,
But then COLA's
Meager.
across the board. You can't just say one department has it, one department doesn't.
No, I don't, I don't know the right way to do it.
Anyway, I just
You
throw
gotta-
that out there.
But it's gonna be up to everybody, gonna have to take that back if
Oh,
we're
you
not
could
gonna
have
do
a
a pink
point
postcard.
well, certainly there could be a, we'll call it a COLA, whether it be across the board or whatever, and then if those are gonna be applied, then other areas of the budget have to be cut back. That's the way it happens, right?
We're not-
So
we're not
Robert, my
increasing.
question for you was, so even though we have that 4 million extra in building permits or whatever, the actual growth, the real growth in the other area scaled back considerably from what it was last year.
Is this it right here?
What's that?
I don't remember the number.
Oh, yeah, yeah, it's there.
So on the real growth, it was 9.6 million. So of that, about 3 or 4 was old building permits. And our goal is this year to finish up the other half of the old building permits that can be closed. Some of them are,
Right.
you know, somebody started a house 2 years ago, they're not quite done. So we're picking up increments of it as it gets completed. But our goal is to pick all that up this year.
But our growth, if we forget that part about, the building permits that haven't been picked up, the fact is, our real growth wasn't very good compared to last year.
And
16 million last year, and this year it's
I have them sitting
Yeah.
here.
minimal.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right.
It's 6
much
million,
smaller.
7 million, 8 million.
Yeah.
I think
So-
what we oughta have is somebody that, like an economist come in here and, you know, instead of doing an audit at the end of the year, we should have somebody come in at the beginning of the year and tell us what we should be looking at with the inflation rate, with the increases we're gonna pay in salary. We oughta be looking at it at the beginning of the year and have somebody calculate that and tell us where we really oughta be to stay flat.
Well,
Go ahead.
I like the idea, but that takes all the hard work away. That's what we're doing up here, and if this was just a math
And we're-
equation,
we're sitting
that
there
would be
shooting-
fine.
we're
If
shooting
this
in
was
the
just a
dark.
math equation, but this is more than a math equation. We're trying to apply principles to math here. We're trying to say, hey, you know, I believe in small government, and I believe we need to shrink this. That's what we're doing, that's what
Well, then
this
we
side
need
of
to
the
start,
room's doing.
the only way you make a small government out of a big one is you start riffing people, 'cause it's people are your whole government, and this whole thing is based on people, that's where our money goes.
There were years,
I wasn't trying to do that.
several years where I shouldn't say several, many years where we reached this point of the budget process, maybe a little farther down the road, where a letter was sent out to all department heads and elected officials that we need to cut an additional, I don't remember what the numbers were, 2 to 3% out of your budget. One year it was 10%. And there were some departments that weren't able to do that, some of the smaller 1 and 2-person departments. But the bigger ones complied, and it worked, and it helped.
Yeah, we could do, I can try. And we also had a suggestion, and I was looking at my notes, of taking all the capital budgets, everything that's in the fives. No more desks, no more, I don't know what's all in the fives, but
Capital improvement things, yeah.
yeah.
And
Let me ask Kurt a question, what could you do in your department to get us fiscally responsible up here? Just, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, just give me an idea.
I have, kinda like Steve has, I have some positions I budgeted 12 months for. Haven't hired any of them yet. It's gonna be another, probably 2 or 3 weeks before I replace that dispatcher that just left. I have some funds built in for vehicle storage. If I can find a county facility and I have to do a market study to find out what it's worth, I can pay the county rent and I get 90% of it back through reimbursement, so
So you can make some money doing
I
that.
can make some money on the back end of that. I don't have a lot of, my biggest fat is my wages and benefits. And other than that, I mean, my budget didn't go up significantly, and once Lisa pulls out those other numbers, my tax ask is gonna go down even further. I mean, at 186,000, I'm already not asking for a lot for the whole year.
yeah, you're one department that is
And fortunately,
fortunate.
my reimbursement
Right.
ratio that these other departments don't have that one.
You
That's right.
almost,
I'm kind of the
Right.
odd
And
man out here.
we almost make money with your,
Not quite, but
Yeah.
really close.
But it's close, it's getting closer.
So going back to what Ken said, you know, telling departments it's gotta be 5%, or it's gotta cut 10%, or you gotta cut 7%. Give them a solid number, because we have sent out 2 emails already that said, please find something to cut. And if we go with Ken's idea of giving them a solid number, of what they need to cut, that's probably what the next email needs to say, is a solid
And
number.
I
We've
guess
been
I'm,
sitting here 2 nights now, looking at stuff that we're not gonna use at all.
The other thing we did last year, we remember we sold a bank building for $500,000.
We did.
And, there's another piece of property that the county owns that's prime real estate. It's on the corner of the Beltline and Avenue I. Just an idea.
I don't know, we're
But they
collecting rent on that, aren't we, Lisa?
Not very much, but then they tell me you move the location, you might lose the Keno standing, cause it's really a very busy place and we have pretty good business there. So
Okay.
could you move it somewhere else? What would you do with the Keno operation? Yeah, do we need to own a bar and grill?
so, a couple things I would mention, I was hoping we'd be done here by 7:30-ish. We're past
We
that
are.
We
at
can
this
leave.
point. I would only say that, Lisa has asked, is there any specific department, specific one that you want here on Wednesday? And, I haven't heard of any yet, but if someone has someone, be sure and say it now or let Lisa know
Or
tomorrow
text me,
morning.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Number 2, I think we need to come here with our specific thoughts as to where we're at and where we're willing to be, and I will say only one thing. And that's that, the issue of this new legislation, if it passes tomorrow,
We're in trouble.
that is a whole different, that puts a little different light on the pink postcard issue.
I would
Meaning,
exceed that pink postcard in a minute
if
if I
you're
had
gonna
to,
be
'cause that's gonna be our
zero,
basis point.
if you know you're gonna be 0, well, there's some exceptions, but let's say that we assume that we would be zero, then all of a sudden that starts to
Man, how do you
cause you
think
to
about
rethink
zero?
things a little
Yeah.
bit.
Cause if that sets
But-
in for 5 or 10 years, that
Right,
could be
but
severe.
I would only say, for staff and, the only reason that stuff comes is because taxpayers, constituents, what I call customers, are fed up with it.
We all pay.
And, yeah, we may have to do with less. That's the cold hard facts. Because if we don't be careful, then that stuff's just gonna continue to come. And some of the people know that they can just simply put an initiative on the ballot, and if it passes, then that goes even faster than it happening through the legislature. And, so I don't know, where we're headed for sure, but, anyway, we need to come to the meeting on Wednesday with some real concrete thoughts of how we're gonna get to where we need to be. And right now, we need to cut 3-something million,
2.8.
2.8.
I'd like
If you
to,
wanna make the pink postcard.
I'd
or
like
not.
to see the comm center here Wednesday,
What's that?
the comm
Comm
center.
center people, so Tyler and or Troy.
Okay.
Yeah, he had quite a excess in his budget.
The other one we asked for, was, the surveyor. He was here tonight, I should've said
Yeah, I
something.
wonder if he's,
I did let him know,
Okay,
to be here at, I just said 1 o'clock, I didn't know.
on Wednesday,
Yeah,
okay, and his should be short, so,
yeah, I did let him know and he wrote it down, so.
good. Cause we asked for him to show up,
thank you, Ashley.
yeah. But other than that, I mean, that's all I know to do. Come with those thoughts in mind.
Ooh, I don't know if I'm gonna come.
So without the COLA, where would we be? I'm just curious.
Without the COLA, you would be about $500,000 down.
500,000 better than.
Well, that's what I'm gonna guess, cause I had my
We're
salary
still
review.
looking for 2.3 million, Ben?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my, how do you do it, wild guess. Cause that's what I was going for my spreadsheet, of who would be COLA affected and what
I'm missing an inventory.
from,
I've got it right here.
oh, okay.
I'm sorry. Got hung up here. Anything else that we wanna do
You don't wanna
tonight?
go through any budgets tonight? I can show you A and G, or we can do it Wednesday.
I would like to have an executive session with the board to discuss personnel.
Okay. Am I in it or just you? You guys?
Just the board.
Do I need to stick around?
I don't think so.
Although I know
Alright,
Kelly
so-
likes the company.
Charlie's asking for an executive session to discuss personnel. Is that a motion?
That'll be my motion, just the board.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
How about if I
Oh.
one at a time?
Yeah.
Knapper?
Yes.
Blue?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Meyer?
Yeah.
Reisig?
Yes.
We're back. Miss Lisa, we left lights on in their office.
Okay, I gotta go lock up.
Yeah, that's
Which paper, that Robert? Oh, hey, you wanna take it? He's gonna get me another one tomorrow.
I'll just get
He's gonna get me one tomorrow. Oh, okay. It's just, yeah, go ahead.
Come back to order. Have roll
It's
call.
just changing the levy is all he was doing.
Harris?
Yes.
Knapper?
Here.
Reisig?
Yes.
Blue?
Yes.
Meyer?
Here.
Any decisions?
No. Back at 8:06. No decisions were made. Any other discussion? No other items on the agenda. We'll call the meeting adjourned.
He needs to, we need to get the sweep